What's up, fam? Greetings. Welcome, friends. Ladies, gentlemen, and envies. Hello. Hello, hello. Dejan, this is Dejan. Why did I read your name as Dejan?
Deja Mustard.
Right. Dejan Lovren. This is live, Dorian. We're live talking about Brand New Animal episodes 4 through 6 on our Stream of Thought series, our podcast. This is Warui Deshou. Again, it's probably bad is what that name means roughly in Japanese, and it most definitely will be, but we also think that can be good. I hope everyone is doing well. I hope everyone is staying as safe and healthy as possible. I'm the Subtle Doctor.
Masks. So this is really
Wear them.
dark. Just felt like throwing that.
Yep. No, definitely. Wear the masks is a necessary piece of advice, unfortunately, in today's world. As I was saying, I am the Subtle Doctor. And though I'm not a doctor, take this medical advice, wear the masks. And across from me, across the pond, but close to my heart, as he often says, and it's true of him as well, the hardest working man in pod business, the guiltiest gear, it is Shadon.
Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well. I'm also the angriest man in Manchester for a variety of reasons. If you think me like repeating the mantra of "Hey, wear a fucking mask" is a thing, I went to go get beer before because I figured this is going to be a beer pod today because I'm also kind of annoyed at this show to put some spoilers ahead of time on how I feel about it. And God, the amount of people just saying, you know what, I could pay at the pump, but fuck you, I'm going to go pay at the actual till and walk without a mask. Jesus Christ, these people would piss on me if they're on fire. So yeah, I'm annoyed today. I'm belligerent. I'm grouchy. You know, I'm grumpy, the usual, cantankerous. So expect a bit of bile from me later. Sorry.
It's all happening in the world right now. But at least one of the things happening is in this country, we have a very conservative pro-gun, cough, cough, pro-murder, cough, cough organization known as the National Rifle Association. And I believe the what is the office called in New York? It's one of the head district attorney, or maybe the AG of New York is suing the old NRA for corruption. So perhaps the NRA will be no more. That'd be a nice thing. I'd appreciate that in my country. That will be a step in the right direction as far as America and guns go. But we're not here to talk about American politics. I know that is... Listen, if you want us to talk about politics, just drop it in the old After Hours stream. Then we'll drop it in the After Hours channel, which is a feature of our Discord, which you can have access to if you are a member of the Warui Deshou Patreon. You can hear us talk about things like maybe politics, but definitely video games and anime and other assorted medias that we're asked about and that we're currently playing. It's sort of like what have you been up to lately, and also question grab bag series. It's one of the many benefits you can get if you head on over to patreon.com/waterwedeshow and sign up for a subscription there. We got group watches, we got extra content, we're covering more shows on the weekly, we are doing deep dives into shows, all sorts. Just head on over there, see if there's anything you like. Get in, get involved. We got a great community. That is a plug out of the way. So, Brand New Animal, episodes 4 through 6. Tell Shad to turn up his mic or bring it a bit closer to him because there's a noticeable difference in volume.
It was fine. Audacity's waveform is fine. So, Doc, you check the mixer?
So I've turned you up on my end. Could you please give us another test? Why don't you say some more about the beer buying experience you had, and I'll be looking at the volume as you talk.
Oh boy, where do I even begin? Where do I even fucking begin? Because you've got... I'm not willing to believe that 50% of any given people in a public place or like a shop or a petrol station have some crippling respiratory condition that means that you all can duck wearing masks. No, the math doesn't support that. Go fuck yourself if you choose not to wear a mask and hide behind the fact that genuine people who can't wear masks because they are literally dying from fucking COPD or something, and you're going to pretend you have that. Go fuck yourself in the fires of hell.
Well, the waveform seems fine now.
Oh, I was fine. God. Every time I go out just to buy groceries, I end up hating my fellow man just a little more.
Great.
Don't be shit. It's not hard. It's the lowest of bars to clear.
Well, I was thinking that this would be a positive and enthusiastic. Well, you're certainly enthusiastic about something. I can't fault you for that.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, when I get angry, I get passionately angry as well. That's when I start mixing my metaphors a little bit, and there'll be some of that coming up later.
That's all right.
Because, man, like
you didn't like these.
Well, God, I feel like I have to jump into the whole talking point thing, but of course, obviously, I have to restrain myself and I have to hold back. What I will say is this, right? I said in the previous previous pod we did about these first 3 episodes, like, I'm glad Trigger's redemption arc is continuing, and the more I thought about it since then, those 3 episodes and then these 3 as well, I'm like, well, I guess that redemption arc is kind of sort of over in a little bit. I mean, okay, look, it's not Frank's. Let's be fair here.
That's a little hard. I mean, there's a difference between sort of I don't know, something maybe missing the mark for you and then something being terrible. I feel like this is not the nadir of the studio that their involvement in Frank's is. And that's even like how, there's debates about how involved they were versus A1 and things like that. But But please go on.
I have to say the second thing though is I wasn't expecting to get a revitalized sense of the of episode 6 of Frank's, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? But I'll get to that later.
Oh man, well, to put my opinion front and center on Front Street, etc. On Front Street, I really liked these episodes a lot. In fact, I like them a great deal more than the previous set of episodes. And we'll talk about why in the summary, and we'll talk about why in the talking points. But first, before we do that, I'm going to say a quick little bit about some folks involved with the show. Now, normally I try to at least, it may not show in the podcast, right? But I try at least to have a glance through these CVs before we go to air. I've not looked at these at all. So definitely going to be a prime slice of Doc reads to you is what this segment will be. But we've already talked about what's up. Oh, yes.
Yeah, gather around. Yeah, it's you at the campfire.
Right. It's me in the classroom reading to you kids. Since I'm such an old fucker.
Trusty old anime fan, you might say.
Oh, yep. Right. I was gonna try to bring him in at some other point, but look, we might as well bring him in now. Now's as good a time as any. The voice for one of our characters, Crusty Old Anime Fan, was requested in our Discord, and since the requester is a member of said Discord, I mean, I cannot refuse to bring him back, and I've definitely gotten in touch with him, and he's totally available to talk about this and to do some reading here for us of these creatives. So now, Krusty, come on over here. I'll turn it over to you.
Hello there, Shadon. How are you? How's it going? I hope you're faring well over there in your United Kingdom with your, silly haircut man doing the prime ministering and whatnot. Not that it's any worse than over here, I'll tell you that. Or any better, I should say. I'll give you a chance to talk. How are you doing, son?
I'm fine, thank you, Crusty Old Anime Fan.
That's right.
I'm surprised you were able to use the modern, miracle that is the internet. I thought you were still stuck on Morse code or the telegram.
Well, since I am an anime fan, I was forced onto the Usenets and other things to have someone to talk to about old anime, because no one wants to. Not even your illustrious podcast. Here you are talking about Brand New Animal. Look at the name, Brand New. It's automatically bad because it's new. It's not old. Classic. Vintage. No giant robots. No Megumi Hayashibara songs. No, I don't know, Bright Noah slaps, whatever. It's just inferior product. I miss the days when things came directly to video and you had OAVs. Those were the delicious good days.
And you had to pay upwards of $100 per
Ah,
video,
yes,
no less.
that's right. It was a method of gatekeeping, so that only those with money, real adults with real jobs, could enjoy the anime. And now every Tom, Dick, and Harry with his mom's internet connection thinks they're a fan. Let me tell you, you're not. You're just not. Anyway, I'm supposed to read these names, so here we go. Episode 4, directed by Tatsumi Fuji. I'm looking at this for the first time. The Dr. Subtle did not send me a mail with this list, but I see a lot of key animations on television shows, such as Fractale, which is a steaming pile of horseshit, and Corpse Princess, also garbage. Black Rock Shooter, disgusting. You should go to jail for watching that.
Oh my god.
But here's something. Star Blazers 21.99 TV. A key animation credit here is a good one, because even though it is quite new, it is a Slavish, a property that is Slavish to something old, and I appreciate that. As is SSSS Gridman TV. This person was a storyboarder and episode director. So good on you, Mr. Fuji.
Well, thank you very much for that, Krusty. I appreciate
Oh no,
you,
there's more.
bringing your-
There's more.
Oh, there's more.
We did 3 episodes. This podcast did. And by the way, let me just tell you my name. It's not Krusty. This is what you've decided to call me. This is an adjective describing my function, Krusty, old anime fan, but I have a name. And that name is Eugene. So I'd appreciate it if you call me by my name.
Exactly where you've got that from as well, come to think of it. Well, okay, Eugene. Huge Gene. Please tell us more about the creators behind this show.
All right, the director of episode 5, Tomoyuki Monihiro. We have a lot of key animations here as well for things like Aquarion. Things like Gun X Sword, which is kind of new but sort of old now at this point. I mean, things in the 2000s, it gets blurry. That's a good show, though. Gangsta. Some key animation there. Kill la Kill. Whatever. A lot of trigger shit.
Kill la Kill. I was waiting if you were going to bring that up for episode 5 in particular, because I'll tell you now before I get into talking points later. Episode 5 is the most Kill la Kill episode that isn't actually a part of Kill la Kill the show that I have seen in quite some time, especially from Trigger. But we'll come back to that later, of course.
For being a new property, it did make me laugh. I did chuckle a few times during that episode.
It's the first time he's laughed in 25 years.
That's exactly right. Which is more than I can, since Evangelion aired. It's the first time I've laughed. But this is more than I can say for most animes. We have all kinds of other, things involving Trigger, like Grid Man with the 4 S's, and Space Patrol Luluko, which is a weird thing. And, Prison School. Lupin the Third. Lupin. There's a television show. Let me tell you something. Lupin. There's nothing like Lupin. Nothing. But part 4, the newest part. Wait, is it the newest part? That might be a part 5. At this point, I don't know. I've lost track because it's too new.
Yeah, well, of course you lost track of part 5 because that's the one where Lupin steals from the internet. So no wonder you found that difficult to understand.
Don't even know how you would do that. How do you take from a non-physical entity?
Well, it's actually quite easy, Krusty. Like, I mean, maybe you don't even have this, but if you were willing to give me your credit card number, I could demonstrate for you.
We'll share it off the air.
Excellent. I'm glad you're willing to do that.
So
Your
episode...
donation is welcome.
Oh yeah, of course. Listen, I support good podcasting. You all talked about Flag, which is not old, but it's old enough, I suppose. Yoshihiro Miyajima, you all talked about because he directed episode 1, so we've already gone over that. I think the only other note that the doctor had was he wanted to point out that the seiyuu of what's his name, Cliff Boris. Oh, that's the most shitty alias I've ever heard. Definitely in witness protection, Cliff Boris.
Oh, Boris. You mean Shah Aznable in beast form?
Indeed, but the voice, the Koyatsu Takehito. I mean, it's, he's Excalibur from Soul Eater. Perfect to play this role. Luck Gandor from Bakano. I mean, he just, exudes that sort of I am a prophet kind of energy. Shibungi from Guilty Crown. Guilty Crown.
Damn it. Never mind. Well, I was going to say he's also Dio from Modern... Yeah, he's Dio from Modern JoJo's. He's also Zato 1 from Guilty Gear as well.
Indeed.
And much more recently, I mean, you would have seen this, Krusty, but me and Doc have been talking about it. He plays, I don't remember the character's name, I'm going to call him the Doom Cube, from Decadence.
Hugin!
That's it.
That's, my mother almost called me Hugin. Thank God I was able to dissuade her from that.
I don't know how you did that when you were that young, but hey, well done. Maybe, then again, you'd probably always be able to speak in this voice from the moment you popped out.
You're damn right. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have classic 1970s television to consume, which is better than what will be going on here. But I'll listen later.
Joy.
Please call me.
Baby. Ladies and gentlemen, Emmys, that was a crusty old anime fan making a return after being defrosted, and put in cryogenic suspension for so long. But yes, thank you very much, Krusty, and thank you, Doc, for also providing the info on that. All right, so shall we now get into a little bit of the old plot summary?
Whew. Yes, I will try, despite my my voice being now about like 50% of its previous capacity.
The plots for these episodes can actually be summed up pretty quickly, to be quite honest, in my opinion.
I think there's a lot of really good beats, a lot of good scenes that I wanted to just point out. But yeah, it won't be anything too exhaustive. Again, we're covering 3 episodes here, so we're going to try to condense it from what we normally do. But episode 4 is kind of the episode where Michiru gets to... Well, actually, I have something on the top of my notes. I wanted to address this because in our previous episode of the show... Yes, thank you, Go-Go. It was... Listen, don't apologize. It's a lot of fun.
As long as people don't want Zyvox to be brought back, that voice
I want Zyvax to be brought, Vox to be brought back.
That's his younger brother. He's the nice one. He's the one who weaves baskets and makes floral arrangements
exactly.
for small children.
Oh, why did brother turn out to be such a
destructive
villain?
There you go. You've got the voice for it. Perfect.
Mother is always so worried about you, Zyvox. Come home. Come home.
He's lost the time. He got sucked into a black hole. It's all over for him, I'm afraid. Didn't quite work out.
I miss him so much. But okay. There is a thing I wanted to point out really quickly. And because we talked about the show being, I think you brought this point up, that it was sort of like saying, oh, well, you have these people that are trying to create safe spaces and they don't know what they're doing and this is bad. And I think,
do I have more to say about that later?
Well, I think actually, I think we have the wrong terminology because I don't think, I think safe spaces are universally good. I don't think every space should be a safe space, but I think safe spaces should always exist and, be maintained. But I think that actually the word we are probably looking for is utopia. I think they're trying to create a utopic society for beastmen to live in. I think that's like the aim, right? I mean, obviously, it's clear to even the mayor that it's not a utopia, but it's sort of an ongoing quest, baseball. Right?
Like the crime of playing baseball, as we'll find out soon enough. Well, if I might address your point, like I think that safe space is still a viable term to use here. But the thing is, like, just 'cause it's like you said though, they're trying to do it doesn't mean they're succeeding though. And I think utopia like is a bridge above like that term in terms of ambition. Because I think all they really want is just for a place for beastmen to like go about their lives. Whereas utopia, to me, like at least from my understanding of it, like in classical fiction, is more like we're going to go like above and beyond the current society to make it perfect in every way possible. That was the intent behind Brave New World, and funnily enough, that's something you could link to this particular show about the hubris of man trying to create like a perfect society. But I literally just think that it's meant to be like a sanctuary or a safe space. I don't think utopia is entirely accurate, but I get where you're coming from with it though.
Well, maybe sanctuary city, because safe space is a term that when you expand it to a society, and it is a society they've made, then I mean it's just not, safe space is just not a term that scales in that way. Safe space is meant to be a confined, it is meant to be like kind of local and limited in its scope and purpose. So I don't think that term is, if you think utopia is too large of a shirt, then safe space is too small of one.
Sanctuary League will probably be the best bet then, I would say.
Yeah.
Because I see where you're coming from, that the term safe space is probably incorrect one to use in terms of scale. I think the intent's spot on, but I think you're right about the scaling thing. So let's go with sanctuary.
All right. So terminological note out of the way. So
yeah, I love it. Semantics, let's go.
Love semantics. Love a semantic. Once dated a semantic. It was that relationship dried very quickly. Hey. So that was probably not a good. That was a bad job. Didn't make sense. Anyway, I think you saw what I tried to do there, at least. Hopefully,
you gave it a try.
Yeah. I lack the wit.
Much like this show. Hey!
Aw, boo! I lack the wit of my my colleague here, but anyway,
that's probably for the best.
Anyway,
my wit's terrible.
No, it's great. It's great. So this episode is episode 4. We're starting with. It is the one which she gets to go home again. Michiru meets well, first of all, the fact that she gets a phone that can illegally like circumvent the firewall of this safe haven that they're in of Anima City, because the internet is only used to look at like state news. So she acquires.
That might be referencing possibly.
I don't know, but yeah, this definitely seems like a utopic kind of move. I mean, you're like talking about like perfect societal, right? You're regulating the use of the internet. That's above and beyond. That's more than just like, hey, beastmen, be cool to each other. It's like, hey, let me regulate your consumption of the internet. Like, I feel like that's I feel like utopia is the one here that for this, but.
Now that'd be, if you were regulating the internet, that'd be dystopia.
I know, but I'm saying the intent of the creators of the city. Clearly, this is a piece of dystopic fiction. I think that's clear.
I thought the intent of it was literally just that it was a rule put on them in the founding of Anima City by the humans. In other words, you don't get to go back. So that's clearly not a good thing, in my opinion. Like, I don't think the intent behind that regulation is ever good.
The mayor thinks it's a good thing, though. Unequivocally.
I don't recall her saying. I don't think I remember saying that.
Oh yeah, okay. I mean the way they explain it to her is like, of course this is like, why would you use the internet for other things? Like, and she's like, that's not fair, and they're like, no, it's good, it's fine. Correct me if I'm wrong about that in the chat. I was pretty sure that's the way that it went down. But
before we leave that scene, though, I want to, because you're skipping ahead of something I want to mention. Did you enjoy? Our favorite trope in anime, which is the explanatory PowerPoint.
I did. I enjoyed the PowerPoint presentation very much.
Oh, man. I'm going to get this out of the way now, because it's not really a massive talking point, but I thought that I was like, God, this... You know that they don't know how to handle exposition when they have to rely on this shit. But what's funny is that it's only in service of what would have otherwise been the most minor of, like, how does this work things that I'll get to later, with... Oh, how does the shark mafia boss have a dolphin daughter? That explains it, because his wife was a dolphin, clearly.
Right.
And that's why you don't have, like, fucks up hybrids or something like that, like ligers. which
Right.
are real as it happens, which made me chuckle. I was like, no one ever mentions the liger.
Yeah, good old liger.
Yeah, but otherwise, I
No
thought, God,
mules.
this
No mules in this. No, I'm hoping that this will come into play again later. Otherwise, it was kind of a even more clunky than it already is. I mean, it's something that in view of again not seeing if they bring it up again later. I'm willing to give a pass to they're explaining a weird concept. But yeah, if it was only a concept that matters to this episode, then I mean it was a little bit of a clunky way to explain it. But anyway, we're getting into the weeds, and I meant to be doing a broader overview here. So anyway, once Michiru has her phone, she sadly logs onto Facebook. What are you doing, show creators? Why would you have a young person log onto Facebook? Facebook/Facebook. That's just so inaccurate.
She could have been doing a TikTok. I don't know.
It's probably still legal in Anima City. But
be logging on to the picture service Instafam.
Exactly. Pics if. But so she's on there and she sees someone on her friends list streaming live and notices, oh my God, this person is actually right next to me. And it turns out to be a dolphin called Nina, who is the daughter of Flip, Flip, who is what is he, a hammerhead shark?
He's a shark of some description. I feel they missed a beat here because I would have loved it if it was an in-joke that he turned into a penguin.
I mean, I was thinking he'd be a dolphin too, since Flipper is the most famous television dolphin, or perhaps the most famous dolphin of any repute.
But then again, we saw what happened in The Simpsons when the dolphins took over, so maybe it was for the best.
but he turns out to be a shark who looks in the face, at least in one shot, almost exactly like a palette swapped Majin Buu, like a skinny Buu, not like a giant Buu.
Well, I can go one better than that. He's Wilson Fish, the kingpin.
Yeah, he totally. I love it, Wilson Fish.
Oh.
But anyway, Michiru and Nina become fast friends after a mix-up on the part of her bodyguard, and they decide to go to a party. And I have a lot to say about this party. I thought this is a really, really interesting setting and things happening. But this is a party that is a human party, like Nina and Michiru.
It's also what happens with Michiru and Nina before they go to the party.
Well, listen, we're trying to be very broad here, but
there's something huge that happens, which is that Michiru turns to human again.
Yep, she's able
Gotta mention
to,
that.
through sheer force of will, right, become a human again. But there's she says some really interesting stuff here that comes into play later when she talks to Nazuna, but we'll get to that. So, yeah, she's able to turn human again if she wants to. And as a human, she and Nina, she rides the back of Nina across the lake or whatever, across the ocean. I don't know what they have. Did they say what body of water it is? Is it an ocean? Is it a lake?
I'm going to assume it's a lake, because if you go back to episode 1, that's what Michiru had to cross in order to get to Anima City to begin with when she was chased off the highway.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense. I mean, it's probably something like Lake Michigan, I would guess.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
A huge lake.
How did I know that? I don't know the geography of my own fucking country, but I know what Lake Michigan is.
Do you know the other 4 Great Lakes?
There
are 5. Oh, come on, just take a guess. Do you know any of the other 4? Don't look it up.
Lake Donatello, Lake Raphael. I don't know this shit.
Oh.
Lake Venkman, Lake Egon.
I don't even know if I could name the other 4. There's Lake Erie.
So I literally could have said anything and you wouldn't have known.
No, I know which ones they are, but I just can't. So I know Erie, Huron, Michigan, and there's 2 more. I can't think of the other.
Sounds like the model of a Gundam robot.
It's true. It really does. It really does. And Gundam likes to take names from U.S. geography and things. Anyway, so human Michiru and human form Nina, go to this party that I think her name is Lisa is hosting, and it is a Beastman costume party where they wear these little, everyone wears these dinky little half masks, sort of Phantom of the Opera-esque masks that have cat ears, bunny ears, or whatever on them. And very quickly, Nina accidentally reveals that she's a Beastman at this party. And I had to pause the thing and I just held my hands. Erie and Ontario. I said Lake Erie, but Ontario is a good call. So Erie, Ontario, Huron, Michigan, and there's one more that I'm not thinking of that I can't remember. Anyway, thank you, Catherine. Like I said, when Nina sort of lost her head and started to celebrate and became a dolphin and did a flip, I had to pause it and hold my head in my hands and just, it's like, oh fuck, what's gonna happen? I was so tense, and then it turned out
it's okay. She's a VTuber. She just took on her VTuber persona. It's fine. It's fine. She's not actually a Beastman.
Well, something way more insidious than that happened. But again, I want to talk in depth about it later. But anyway, these folks end up seeming pretty nice, but they're taking pictures of her, which is bad because Flip has found out she's in the human city and he's mad. But our boy Wolfman, whose name I can't think of for some reason right now, what's he called? Shiro, right? Shiro. Okay, so Shiro dissuades him at the behest of the mayor. Let me get her back. I'll take care of it. And Mishra ends up getting Nina out of there when the folks at the party prove that they don't actually understand Lake Superior. Holy shit, how did I forget Lake Superior? It's like the easiest one to remember. It's the biggest one.
I want to clip that out of context.
You should.
Lake Superior, how did I forget that?
I know. You
might be wearing a Lake Superior t-shirt on a future podcast, or a future stream, rather, I mean to say. Mm-hmm. I want that to happen. You need to make sure not to tell me, so to see if I notice.
Okay. Duly noted. I'll make a quick scribble. But yeah, Nina almost dies because again, these people don't, they purport to understand the plight of the Beastmen, the Jujin, but they don't. They're just Ningen. They don't get it. And they accidentally almost kill her. But Mishru uses her, she continues to sort of have more and more of a grip on her powers. And she's able to, because she's in a pinch, a die pinch, she busts open the tube that Nina's in, gets her, and they go back to Anima City in one piece. Everything's okay, but they're buds. I don't know if Nina will come back, but I hope she will. But Shiro and company are able to avoid a big war because they return Nina. And there's this amazing scene at the end of episode 4. This might be my favorite scene in the whole show, where she's Mishu's back on the internet in her bed late at night, scrolling through Facebook, and she sees a picture of a strawberry cake that her mom has made in celebration of her birthday, because it's her birthday today, which they mention a few times in the episode, in a gag with the weasel. Minku! Weasel Janai. But Mishuru sees this cake, and she's so moved because her mom has made this cake for her. I mean, the last time we saw her parents, they were very much on board with her staying hidden, keeping her in her house, in their house rather. The impression that I got, or at least that I remember, is they were not too thrilled with their daughter being a Jujin, a Beastman. But her mom has made her this cake on her birthday and thought of her and posted it to social. And she's so close to liking it. Her fingers hovering over the favorite star. And she chooses not to do it because... what's that?
That's credits as well for optimal effects.
Right. Well, not super quickly. She hovers over it and then chooses not to and looks at it for a bit more. and then cut to credits, right? And but like that hesitation, that anxiety and fear that she has in that moment, like it's so human. I mean, she's, you know, a superhero sort of for all intents and purposes, like in some ways. But despite her having the ability to, when the chips are down, get out of these pinches that she's in, it doesn't solve all her problems. You know, she's still run away from home. She's still uncertain about her relationship with her parents. She doesn't want people to know where she is. She doesn't want her human people asking questions. It's a really huge, complicated problem that she still has to face, and that the superpowers are not going to, or the, like, what is it? The explosive cell division is not going to solve for her. And so I really, really like this moment at the end of episode 4. Episode 5, I have yay sports written down in my notes because hell yeah, sports.
We need to start playing something like Spanish Fly at this point.
Love it.
Oh man, this episode, like, all right, look, I'm gonna interrupt here just to point out, like, yeah, I'm down on the show, but the individual episodes I like, but the overall show has got problems, and the problems are really bothering me. But like, I can't deny this episode was great, not least which because of the animation. Holy shit!
Really good animation, really good, like, I'm a badass sort of trigger poses and faces.
These were poses straight out of Kill la Kill. Like the one where we'll get to a bit where Michiru squares up one of the teams and she's like this, like right in their faces. I'm like, yes, that's Ryuko. She is the most Ryuko in this episode of any of them thus far.
I love when she's like on the mound posing at the flamingos. But we haven't set any of this up yet, so very quickly, Michiru begins this episode missing her basketball days. I mean, in case you've forgotten, she's a jock. She's a basketball player in her human life, pre-Beastman virus, which, and by the way, I think it's important to note, in this episode, the next episode, and maybe in episode 4 too, we get the sense that, like, she definitely still sees her condition, her sort of new life, as a disease that needs to be cured. But other people that either are Beastmen or are like her and Ningen turned into Junin through medical wizardry are not really seeing it that way. They're like, do you still see it as a disease, huh? I don't. That's interesting. How uncomfortable the party was. Yeah, Grizz, I have so much to say about this party when we get more into the discussion. But episode 5 rather. She's looking to find some basketball to play, and the lady that she's staying with takes her to a baseball game and is like, hey, there's a ball. People run after a ball. It's the same thing, isn't it? Well, see you later. So she's forced to watch this baseball game. Not Blazeball. There will be no talk of Blazeball on this podcast. It's not happening.
What's Blazeball?
Look it up on your own time. We will not talk about Blazeball here.
Yeah, you know what? No, I'm not going to talk about it either. Like, I'll just leave it there.
So, she gets into this baseball game that she's watching. It's the Flamingos versus the Bears. And it's really basically like human baseball, except like there's no sort of penalty for any kind of physical aggression. In fact, animals can kill each other on the field.
It's what Vince McMahon wanted the XFL to be.
It's not far off from that, right? I mean... And
this is about murder. People, like... I mean, this is the amazing line from the mayor later. I know I'm jumping around here, but I want to mention it specifically, which is, the Dodo Beastman went extinct in this baseball game, which was just brilliant. That was great.
Yeah. You, like, hear it on a news report, and they talk about it later. It's so good. And the mayor's like, I wonder what species will go extinct next. We're like, oh my God, this is brutal. So it's sort of like gladiatorial baseball. Mad Maxified baseball with lots of hidden weapons and murder, spikes, and all hidden knives. And the flamingos are destroying the bears, and they have fewer people than are necessary to continue to play. And they ask Mishuru to come play because she catches a foul ball at one point and delivers what people in the game of baseball call an absolute frozen rope of a throw straight to the first baseman. It's just an incredible throw.
What was the name of the first baseman, by the way? She reappears again in episode 6.
What is she called? Jackie? I think she's called Jackie.
Jackie. Well, I'm just gonna put it out there, like this. I said this was the most kill the kill episode, so I'm gonna say that Jackie is the Mako Mankashima of this particular show.
She's amazing. I love Jackie so much.
There's no hallelujah, sadly, but maybe we'll get that as a reference at some point. That'd be nice.
And so when she comes in there, like, she's just a boss immediately because she can pretty much, like, again, she's getting very proficient with using her abilities, her explosive cell division. She can turn her arm into this size of like a big mecha arm and throw unbelievably fast pitches. She can use cheetah speed to outrun the baseball that's being thrown to tag her out. She can use her legs also to jump extremely high and catch would-be home runs. She's an incredible player. She's a 5-tool player in Beastman Ball. Has everything you'd want. 5-star recruit. Bring her in. Pay her on the sly. Give her parents a house. Do what you need to get her in the program. She's her ability's off the charts. And people are making fun of her. The flamingos in this opening scene are making fun of her, calling her ugly and saying, like, who are you? Don't talk to us about right and wrong and killing these other guys. And like, don't you, Tanuki, have like a mud hole to dig? I've got to do my nails, so hurry up. And she just annihilates them, strikes out everyone, strikes out the side. And when she comes up to bat, she just turns it around on them and does this amazing pose. And she's like, I've got a mud island to build, so hurry up and throw the ball. It's so good. And the team starts winning. And this is very bad for the baseball manager because one thing I haven't mentioned is Anima City Baseball is really about the gambling. Much like all sports. No, I kid. But gambling on baseball is extremely popular. So much so that our boy, oh my God, I've forgotten his name again. What's his name? Not Omashu. What's this fucker's name?
Was that a Guilty Crown? Oh
yes!
my God.
Why did that name pop into my head?
Are you just trying to torture me?
Why did I
Jesus
think of his name?
Christ.
Oh
okay,
my
no,
God.
It's Shiro.
Shiro, motherfuck.
Just think of fate. Okay, if you can't remember, just think of fate. There's your word association.
Should think of my cat. I have a cat named Shiro. But okay.
God.
The gambling on baseball is so popular that when the mayor asks Shiro to investigate, he basically lies and it's like, well, couldn't find a lead because he also loves gambling on baseball. But that sort of is a plot that it's sort of a B plot.
Was he actually gambling? I thought he was just letting it run because he didn't want baseballs to be shut down. Because like we have a flashback of him remembering like an incident where there was a Beastman baseball player who lashed out actually in the public eye on the field by beating half his team to death because they were constantly abusing him.
That was the manager.
Oh, that was the manager. Sorry, I could have sworn that. No, the manager had a separate flashback. I'm sure that was Shiro's who had the flashback for that. The manager had a flashback to himself getting a pit, catching a pitch made to the crowd. But I'm 99% certain that Shiro's was that he had a flashback specifically about the old days of like baseball and why everything went to pot.
I think there were both flashbacks of the manager at just different times in his life, and one you're supposed to think this is why he's become a gambler and why he's sort of turned his back on the game. And the other, when he was a younger child, is supposed to convey like, well, even though he has become this sort of deplorable sort of person, actually deep in his heart is this love for baseball, and that hasn't been extinguished.
I've just checked the episode. It was Shiro's, because he actually goes into the manager's office, picks up baseball, looks at the news clipping of this guy who committed this offense, like, beat these people up, and then it goes to the flashback.
Whose
so
office?
It must have been him.
But whose office?
The manager's. But that can't be, but logically speaking, from the filmmaking, then that can't be the manager's. If you cut from Shiro looking at a baseball longingly to a flashback, it's reasonable to assume it's his memory, or at least it's being put from his perspective as the person who's remembering it. If we don't have any frame of reference that it's the manager, how are we to know that?
Tell us in chat, because my memory of the scene, again, I think it was a bat, which I believe the manager is. It was a bat that was, turned around and killed all the humans for abusing him while he was on the team. They gave him a lot of abuse, but yeah, I mean, so at any rate, Shiro, that's what he tells the mayor that, or he tells rather the gambling ringleader that the reason he's not turning him into the cops is because he also likes gambling on baseball. Whether that's true or a lie is neither here nor there. But in the episode, he says he likes to gamble on baseball. So where was I in like the main path here?
It's not about how the gambling was going on. The manager was getting involved in it because he was spoilers. Turns out he's deliberately forcing the Bears to lose in order to help this mob boss. Yet another mob boss. This one actually does look like Oswald Cobblepot, funnily enough. So maybe it should have been him who turned into a penguin. But he's like rigging the games so they lose, so he can make a lot of money from it, and that's why the manager is doing this. And because Michiru did not get the hint on his like very obvious bunt here now, so you lose message, well, what do you think happens when the mob loses a lot of money? It doesn't end well.
Yeah, she just ignores his signs a lot of the time. And because she understands, she's like, bunt? Why would you bunt? No. And that was a really funny part whenever, like, the first batter in the Bears lineup against the Bulls, these giant Bulls, bunts. And then just immediately he gets tackled by a million of them. It was so good. But anyway, the manager, yes, so he is, like I said, someone who is downtrodden, is poor. He's been, what was a baseball player, was kind of not driven out of the game, but like fell out of love with the game, to the point that he is just doing this for the gambling purposes, to help, not just to help the mob, but like they promised him a cut, which he turns down at the end because, again, he comes to fall in love with baseball through this incredible story here. But Michiru either ignores him or whatever, and she powers the team to victory. And can I just say, I don't know if you're familiar with baseball and the rules and whatnot, Shadon. Are you?
I know a bit of it.
Well, one of the games, it may be the Bulls game, I can't remember. They win in the last inning, they being the Bears, by a score, of 8-7. Now, the score of 8 runs would imply that players other than Michiru got on base and scored and thus did well in the game. How the fuck? Because prior to this game, they're shown to be shit.
I mean, if you want to get into the weeds on that, Doc, may I point out that they're also murdering each other? So maybe they're not paying that much attention to it. I don't know. Just to put aside, though, like, Winnie the Pooh gets murdered in this game.
Yes, exactly.
Which, that's like the second time I have seen on broadcast TV Winnie the Pooh get murdered. The other time being...
that happens off screen. That actually, Red Dwarf happens off screen at least.
That's still great. He's refusing the blindfold.
He's refusing the blindfold. They've executed him.
Bang, 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 bang. That's something no one should ever have to see.
Exactly. Yes.
But it's just great. So that's the second time that Winnie the Pooh has been murdered in proper like primetime television in my life. So thank you for that, BNA. Whatever problems I might have with you as a show, you still did that, and that's great.
You've killed Winnie.
AA Milne's corpse like had rolled over once thanks to Red Dwarf, and now thanks to you, it's rolled back upright again.
Oh my gosh. Well, so to get to the end of this story, like, the Bears make it all the way to the championship game, right? And no one was expecting them to. And each and every time they win, the mob threatens the manager more. But this is fortuitous for them because since the team has gotten on a winning streak and gotten popular, more people are betting on them, and therefore they're able to make more money off of them. And so they tell the manager, hey, manager man, this is it. It's your last chance. Either make them lose or we're done. Like, you're dead. You're going to be sleeping with the fish. And, well, it is going that way for much of the championship game until Michiru finds out the scheme that the manager communicated to all of his players. Hey, if you lose, you get a cut. You also get a cut of this money. You'll be rich. Can move out of the slums. This single room, this one tatami mat room that you're all living in.
Stuff as well.
And you know, so they are throwing the game, despite it being their dream to win the championship. And
Struggle for them though, because they were fighting against Crash Bandicoot characters.
they're just poorly drawn mice. They're just, what is the team just called, like the killer animals? I don't even know what.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Chuck Evil Cheese, for example, leading him.
He really is. He looks like just a rejected, like, Biker Mice from Mars character design. I don't know if anyone
really
remembers
does.
Biker Mice from Mars, but holy shit.
I'm 700 years old, so I definitely remember Biker Mice from Mars.
So the money that everyone bet is stupidly located, first of all, is cash and not, on the internet. It's cash located in a safe and being guarded by one person in some shitty office. And the manager sneaks by him while he's asleep and takes all the money. And this gets out to the entire stadium, who are throwing garbage on the field. The game is canceled, since the betting's off. Like, fuck this, this is an outrage. And this is the best part of the episode. Michiru, after scolding the team, saying, hey, don't you care about the game? Like, what is this? Why are you throwing the game? And they're saying, hey, what's wrong with us wanting to get a little bit of money for ourselves? We're poor. Like, what's wrong with us wanting to achieve our dream of getting out of the slums and living a better life? And she's like, didn't you have a dream to become a champion? And she goes out on the field, totally empty field except for the garbage. And she's pitching to no one, pitching to the wall. And she's just like, why did you fall in love? Or didn't you fall in love with the game? Are you so, afraid now that you're going to run away from your dream right when you're at the doorstep? Are you going to tuck your tail between your legs? Do you only care about the money? And suddenly Jackie appears on the screen and catches the pitch. And he's like, no way. Or she. I actually don't know Jackie's gender, but they're like, no way. We're doing this. And then everyone comes back out on the field to play a game with no gambling attached to it. It's just love of the game, seeing who's better straight up. And the crowd is into it. Everyone's into it. And I think in just a great stroke of writing here, the Bears end up barely losing to the killer animals. And you might think oh my God, this sucks. They did all that and then they lost. But when the game was rigged, the players of the game are robbed of not only the thrill of victory, but the agony of defeat. And, defeat, losing in sports can teach you a lot of things. It hurts like hell, man. It really hurts when you give a shit. about it, and you try and you care and you put it on the line and don't hold back, and your team ends up losing together, that can make future victories just so much sweeter, though. And so, like, it's actually really good, I think, for the Bears to have this sort of experience as a team.
Well, you
And-
get to see Jackie crying as a result of that.
yeah, I mean, they really, really cared.
For
And
the first time, perhaps.
yeah, which is awesome. For the first time, probably since they accidentally won that game, the first game they weren't supposed to win, because they like all carried Michiru on their shoulders back to their neighborhood, and they were so happy. And yeah, and so the manager of the Bears also quits his gig with the mob. He's like, nope, I'm done. Enough of this gambling. He even was out there on the field saying, give it your all, like, go, like, swing with all your might. It was great. It ruled.
He wasn't drinking his 10th can of Old Milwaukee at that point either.
Exactly, because, alcohol is bad. That's the moral of this anime. That's why you don't like it. It's because saying beer is bad. I've discovered your secret. That's the real truth behind your opinions. Oh, man.
I'm the first to admit alcohol is terrible, and also that I still keep drinking it. Like, I'm very glad I never started smoking. I'll just say that much. Like, you won't be able to see me right now. Just be like a cloudy haze, and then you see like the occasional smoke ring fly through.
God. So episode 6, from like the pride of athletic competition to organized religion and
Boy.
the critique thereof. So this episode is all about the silver wolf that the Anima City folks believed in, and they've apparently believed in for quite a while. We've heard it mentioned before. The kids who were being sold off in episode 2 talked about, they were praying to the silver wolf to come save them from their woes when they were being moved on a crane. And at that time, Michiru says, God ain't gonna help you. We gotta help each other here. We gotta help ourselves. And similar messaging at the beginning of this episode from Shiro, who takes his little good luck offering to the god, which is apparently just beef jerky, and he just eats it, which is great. Love that.
One might wonder who the silver wolf is. Ho ho, ho ho.
I'm right. I wonder if that's.
I have no idea.
Those
who
are-
that could possibly be.
those are-
an immortal beast man who cannot die. I wonder.
So that's one of the theories. That for the show, the other overarching theory I have is that the macaroons are what caused their mutation.
Well, the macaroons are in themselves a callback to Black Rock Shoes, which you mentioned before. So
Are they really? I've never seen it.
They're in the first episode. I watched a riff version of the first episode once, and it took all of that episode to make me realize, thank God I never fucking watched more of this. This looks like hot garbage.
No comment because I've never seen it. So, although I have had the PSP game in my house before, because it was someone else's.
When you say like you had the PSP game in your house, like you almost said that like you were hiding a career criminal or something like that. I had the serial psychopath in my house for a bit.
Man, I haven't seen him in a while, but he and I used to be pretty close when I lived in the city. Since I moved to the suburbs, we don't get to hang out really. But when I lived in the city, I was friends with actually knew a person in real life that liked anime. And he had pretty good taste. Like everything I showed him was like, this is really cool. He was like a film major and everything. So we talked about it a lot from that point of view. But then sometimes he would really be into an anime and I'd be like, Todd, why the fuck are you into the Black Rock Shooter? Like he would have like the statues and the PSP game, even though it was like not translated. And I'm like, why? Yeah.
Was his second name Howard by any chance? Was he trying to sell you a copy of Skyrim?
I wish I was buddies with Todd Howard. That'd be pretty dope. But unfortunately, that was not to be. A different Todd for a different time. So the Silver Wolf episode. How does this episode begin? Well, Michiru has to do some dirty work to pay her phone bill. And there's a fantastic line when she's given these water purifiers to sell to poor people. Why do I have to commit a crime so I can pay my phone bill? And tremendous. Like, just a banger of a line because, like, I don't know, things like I feel like the internet and the information accessible therein, I think we've talked about this before on the show, should be free to all. It should be a utility. And how do you access that? Through many people through their phones. She wasn't making long distance calls. She was accessing the internet. And to pay her fucking internet bill, she has to commit this horrible crime here. It's a really good, quick little zinger that I liked a lot. But while she's in the slums selling these things, these creditors come for Jackie because Jackie's bought one of these fuckers and hasn't paid all their installments. And Jackie's going to get burned at the stake, but this group shows up who claim to be, they're the Church of the Silver Wolf, the Genro Kyodon, I think is how it's pronounced in Japanese. At one point, the guy calls them all Sylvanians, the guy being Cliff Boris. Again, I share Eugene's opinion that Cliff Boris is just a terrible, like, I'm in witness protection alias. just so bad. But anyway, they show up, this whole group of cowled, hooded figures led by Cliff Boris. And they're like, hey, don't burn this child at the stake because we're all Sylvanians. We all love the Silver Wolf and we shouldn't harm each other. And the creditors at first are like, fuck you. But someone comes forward who transforms into the Silver Wolf. And all these people that have believed in it for so long that are in the mob or are these creditors are like, oh my God, I can't shoot the Silver Wolf. Turns out the Silver Wolf is being played by someone who's not a wolf, but a kitsune, a fox, who I believe in Japanese folklore is a trickster. And so it makes sense here because this kitsune is pretending to be this wolf, this Silver Wolf. And it is Michiru's best buddy from her former life. It's Natsuna. Nazuna, sorry. I couldn't read my own writing. It said Natsuna, but it's Nazuna. And so, whoa, Nazuna is here, and she's a beastman. Holy cow, this is a huge revelation for Michiru. And she immediately gets into the group, starts talking with Nazuna. Nazuna really wants, and Cliff Boris also wants. By the way, Cliff Boris, also like weirdo, creepy person who Nazuna denies is creepy, but you know he's like abusive boyfriend. Like, I have all these ideas and you're going to be my figurehead and I'm going to be creepy to you and rub you a lot.
Like Charazable, what the fuck was his name? Zex Marquise, you know?
Yeah.
Like, he's cut from that cloth. He's clearly fucked in the head.
Except with lizard eyes, apparently. Like the membrane or whatever, the eyelid, like when you see through the mask, it's like makes that like squishy sound when it opens and closes.
Guess he's a snake, perhaps. That'd be my feeling. That would be a perfect fit for him.
Yeah. Another deceitful animal here. But let's see. She's the kitsune. She's faking being the Silver Wolf. She really wants to see the mayor. The mayor won't see them. The mayor is very worried about this Church of the Silver Wolf. She thinks that they're frauds, but, you know, Michiru is very trusting of her friend Nazuna, and she's like, look, I know where she gets breakfast. I'll show you to her. It'll be cool. I can get you a meeting. And unwittingly, she's like played a part in Nazuna and Cliff's scheme. Because when Nazuna sits down with the mayor, like, so what we've thought before is, at least through Michiru's eyes, is that like Nazuna has been placed at the head of this religion against her will, and she's just kind of trapped trying to play the part that they want her to play. but she doesn't want to do it, and Cliff has these
Messiah.
weird demands. Exactly. So that's what I said, figurehead. But it like turns out not to be the case, because when she's in front of the mayor, she's like sort of assumes this like really forceful tone and is like having all these demands and arguing with the mayor. And it turns out that the mayor kind of caves and says like, okay, we will get you guys what you want. We'll get you guys citizenship to the city. And Michiru feels played. Michiru feels taken advantage of, because Nazuna kind of presented herself in a certain way. But then it turns out that really wasn't what it appeared to be. But she's very much as this like, hey, why did you do this? And Nazuna is just like a huge asshole to her, basically. And just like, there you go again, getting all bent out of shape when the littlest thing happens that you don't expect. And I'm a pop idol now. This is what I've always dreamed to be, and I'll do anything to achieve my dreams, even lie to everyone. And, you know, found a fake religion, apparently. And she, you know, it's either this scene here at the end when there's some distance created between the two friends in the shot, which I think is a good contrast to an earlier shot where they're talking on, I guess, a bed, but it looks like they're talking on an altar almost, and they're very close together. They're in kind of intimate position on a bed. They're kind of laid down. And here they're like in the shot in the park, standing up very far apart from one another, and their masks are off, or at least Nazuna's mask is off. Michiru doesn't really have a mask. And
Human form.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And yeah, Nazuna's just like, hey, you know, get fucked. Like, this was going to happen. You thought you played a part in it, and you just did whatever you wanted because it made you feel good, which is such bullshit. And you know, she is like, this is not a disease. I love it. Like, you still sort of think of it as something you to be cured, but I love this life. And go Michiru, the way she responds to it is not to tuck her tail and run away, or to kind of start crying and be super sad, although that would be understandable. She just basically takes, I forget what object she has in her hand. Maybe it's the good luck charm. And she throws it through the air, like, as far as she can. She's like,
It's the necklace that they wear.
That's right. That's right. She rips it off, and she's like, whatever you I don't have a friend called Deshou. That's like sort of what Nazuna's known as in the cult. And she throws it and goes back home. And we see during the ending credits kind of flashback of the accident that happens to them both. And we start to see it when Nazuna talks about Michiru being impulsive, because, hey, me being impulsive saved your life, bitch. Like, I jumped out in front of a bus without thinking about the consequences. I jumped in front of a bus because you were going to get hit. I saved you. Should be grateful to me for that, at least. But we see that, and we see the aftermath and kind of them recovering. And we see the last shot we see in the episode is Michiru moping on her bed, looking across the room to the picture of her and Nazuna. And then that's the end. Hi, Jessica. We just finished the summary. So you haven't missed like the Into the Weeds discussion yet. Did I miss any big points, Shadon?
None that springs to mind, really, beyond also Shiro saying, hey, don't let her, like, she can't stay here. Because
right.
So if you want to know what Shiro's feeling is on the cult, then it's a big no-no. But no, I think you've covered all the salient points anyway. So
that took longer than I thought it would. But before we get into the patron questions and our own talking points, I need to take a short break, but we'll be back in like 2 minutes. Don't go away.
See you in a moment, folks.
We are back. Apologies for that delay. We needed a quick refresh. And now, patron questions. Shadon, take it away.
Pleasure. So, our first question comes from a friend of the pod, Alexander Schmidt, and it's actually two questions bundled into one. One of those buy one, get one free kind of offers. This is a vague reference to a specific episode of the three that we've covered, but I'll read it anyway. What's your favorite sports episode in an anime? And second, do you have a favorite sports anime? And the answer is episode 5 of BNA and BNA, because that's obviously what Alexander's referring to. Man, like, it was, look, I will restate again for the record that I found episode 5, like, I'll get to my problems in a bit, trust me, they are there. So it's going to seem contradiction. I'm saying that I like the episode a lot. Like, the animation alone made episode 5 worth it. Like, all of the ridiculous pitches, the fight with the killer animals, for example, where you've got one guy who's a mole, like, you know,
oh yeah,
on the ground.
That's right.
Yeah, and you've got this is my shotgun slam. It just yeah, he heals his bat and then it just explodes into like a load of shrapnel and nearly ends up taking Mitru's head off. Like, that to me feels, this show, like, it is a trigger show, but that to me feels like the most it's been triggered thus far, which makes me feel a bit disappointed in the rest of the show that doesn't quite have the same energy to it. But like, that particular episode was like full on, like, that evokes like Kill the Killer, specifically episode 2, which you might recall was the tennis one.
Right, but I think it will be a little bit of an overstatement to when you think. I mean, I know most people, and I fall into this as well, like thinking of Trigger as Hiroyuki Imaishi exclusively, when there's a lot of different people there that make stuff. Like, and this is much more like Yo-Yo Shinari's kind of like feel and pace. And if you watch like Little Witch, you know, you'll see like they make stuff that can have these like little like great flourishes of animation and still have the vibrancy, but won't be just totally wacky out there like kind of thing that episode 5 was. And I'm glad it was that. I mean, it was, this episode 5 ruled, but I think the rest of it is still Trigger, but just like coming from kind of a different creative well than things like Gurren Lagann, Kill la Kill, and what have you.
Yeah, I mean, that's, to be fair, it's my limitation because I haven't actually seen Little Witch Academia yet. My experience with Trigger tends to be from the more bombastic side of things that they cover, and especially fresh in my mind, of course, is Promare, which I'll be referencing again soon enough.
Another Imaishi, and maybe the best thing that studio's ever done. Promare, so good. My favorite sports episode is the baseball episode in Samurai Champloo. Still yet to be topped.
Yeah, there we go.
Really good.
That's pretty out there.
It's so crazy. God, so good. But what a wild show that was. But I really liked the baseball episode of that a lot. Sorry, what were you going to say? I think I might have interrupted you.
No, I had nothing else to add.
Okay. My favorite sports anime, of course, I've talked about this anime a million times on the show since the beginning. Cross Game. It's one of my favorite anime, period, that is about baseball. And baseball is, in many ways, reflective of life. And so Cross Game is an anime about life via baseball. And troubled romance and growing up and dealing with loss early on in your life, all throughout your kind of how you kind of process grief and loss throughout your teenage years. It's all kinds of good stuff. 50 episodes on, I think the place you are gonna have to find it is Hulu. I don't know if it's anywhere. It's not on Netflix. This shows you how long ago I watched it. I watched it on Viz's website. Wow. Yeah, I don't think that they have anything there anymore, but it's still on Hulu. And it was on like the sort of like the Yahoo View thing that was going on for a couple years that had a lot of old Hulu archive stuff and old Funimation like stuff kind of in one place together. It might be on Tubi. You can always do because.moe, although I found because.moe to be like, I don't know, I feel like the coverage isn't as good as it used to be. But you could always see if they have it anywhere. But that's my favorite sports anime. It's really good.
Next question comes from Yukinon, and this is a big one because it's going to lead into basically me talking about my major issue with the show, and also I think a fundamental problem with what it's trying to do. So I suppose there's no time like the present but to buckle up then and get into it. And the question goes to be like this: do you feel these episodes were light on plot? If so, what do you think their purpose was? Right. Okay. There is a point to these episodes. I'm not going to say there isn't. I'm not going to say that. That's daft. I think the intent of these particular 4 episodes is to firstly establish the fact that even amongst beastmen, there are those who have more than others, both in terms of their actual beastman physiology and what they're physically capable of doing. I mean, do you think, for example, the baseball manager would have been as he would have been as much of a victim if he was, say, a lion?
Probably not.
Probably not. No, I mean he was a dog, So there you go. And that in turn applies also to Nina as
I thought
well.
Was he not a bat?
No, the bat was the baseball player who went psychopathic.
Right.
Unless you're thinking that
I thought they were the same person. But see whether or not.
It wasn't clear to me on that.
Yeah, I think they're the same person, and even if Shiro, like you were saying, he's the one having the flashback in his office. I think the only way to make sense of that newspaper clipping being in the office of the manager is that that's the manager, and that was a crime he committed in the human world, and so he of course fled to Anima City, and I don't know, maybe that's how the mob got leverage over him. Who knows? It doesn't really go into it. But I believe that is the manager.
And again, he wasn't also blind, so I don't know.
Well, they're not actually bats. They're beastmen. This is a huge point remember when they put Nina and think, oh, it's saltwater. She's a dolphin. She's not a dolphin. She's a beastman. They're different. They're not animals. They are a different kind of thing. So yes, he is.
I'm joking.
I know.
It's pretty horrifying if, when in his human form, this bat player, if he were the manager or not, his eyes just vanished.
Catherine thought the manager was a dog.
Well, he did keep making an ass out of it.
Who knows? Who can say? Maybe it's in the credits.
There. We need David Attenborough on this.
Mm-hmm.
And here we see playing a standard violence game of baseball. Not the baseball as we know it in the human world, but something altogether more primal.
Oh, okay. Now that you said that, I should mention this anime, even though I haven't seen it. I will vouch for it because I believe the manga. I think it's by the same person that did Kaiji and Akagi, and that is 1 ounce. Nobody wins but I. And it is a baseball anime, but it is about a weird sort of idiosyncratic kind of offshoot of baseball. But it's less about the baseball and more about the gambling. It's very much a gambling on baseball. So it made me think of this episode of BNA here that we're talking about, and specifically what you were saying just now for some reason triggered it in my mind. But I definitely want to watch 1 ounce. If anyone's seen 1 ounce and wants to give a thumbs up or thumbs down to it in the chat, please do, because it's one of those that's been on my to watch list forever, because either I've heard it compared to Kaiji or it's by the person that did the Kaiji manga. Which
no surprises, it's about gambling then.
Exactly. And that person, I'll watch anything that person wrote because they rule.
Okay, so what are these episodes meant to be about? Well, 4 and 6 specifically, as you mentioned before, do have a link to them. They have a bridge in which, first off, Mitru meets this person who is using their position of power as a beastman to basically gain prestige and privilege. That's what Nina's doing. She's cultivating a social media personality. She's, building up a brand and all that. Pretending to be human, and showing off stuff. And then obviously, of course, once people find out about the real her, they're only still interested in her imagined persona, You know, they're not really interested in her as a person, that kind of thing. It's the kind of, it's not like to the same level of which like it's handled with, say, Cheryl in Macross Frontier, but the same core idea is there, which is what's behind the celebrity, and how she was using that, to her own advantage. And then obviously with NASA, similar deal, basically, I always wanted to be a pop idol, and now I am. Although by pop idol, she of course means creepy cult leader.
Mm-hmm.
For some pop singers, that's actually one the same, in my opinion. So hey, maybe it's not so far removed.
Yeah, right.
I will say this though, like I want to ask you a question, Doc, while we're on this talking point, and I've not quite come up with my own final thought on it, but do you think it was a bad thing for the show not to have Mitru think back explicitly to her experience with Nina and then draw the parallel between that and Natsuna, given the similarities?
I don't think so,
we could draw
because
that. We could draw that, but like I'm just sometimes wonder like if there needs to be like a parity between audience and characters, especially since it could be more interesting to the audience that the characters in turn recognize how these experiences line up.
Well, I didn't. I thought that was less the point of the Nina scene. Like I didn't even pick up on that sort of similarity that you're drawing. I got a totally different sort of read on what Nina's character and the party and all that were meant to kind of be about.
Mm-hmm. We'll come back to that a bit because you've got your specific talking point on that. Episode 5 is really a continuation of the stuff established in episodes 1 through 3, which is here's an activity that's going on in the city and it's corrupt. That to me seems pretty cut and dry. And then episode 6 is kind of sort of where, dare I say, the plot actually starts to get going because Natsuna now turns up, who has been referenced before in various flashbacks. But if I may be very blunt here, this is why I mentioned the Frank's episode 6 feeling, because we're now halfway through the show and I have no idea what the actual plot is other than Mitru like got turned into a beastman and they're kind of in the background looking at it.
Right. The medicine man, as I like to call it. The pharmacy. I forget the name of the pharmacy. It's
Medicine.
No, that's right. That's the name of the.
Sylvester.
Thank you. Yes, it's like Silver Star, right? Sylvester.
Cray hindsight turns up again.
Exactly. Yeah, he's got the little opera glasses, watching the baseball.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
This is quite fascinating. But the fact that I have like literally no idea what the end goal of anyone is, other than for Mitru to have the plot basically be given to her, when at some point the mayor like figures out what's going on with her mutation, like that, I think is a real problem for the show. I mean, if we want to compare to, say, for example, I don't know, let's go back to Promare, because I think it's fairly reasonable to make comparisons between BNA and Promare, not least of which because they're in the same studio, but also because they kind of touch on similar ideas. Very first opening minutes of Promare, like, there's a guy burning down a building. He is supposedly the bad guy. We know that he's the bad guy. And he gets caught, and then we progress from there, but we also see like how things are developing with the fact there's the ice analog, all that sort of stuff. So the film is already moving and establishing what the end narrative is kind of going to be, especially when you realize that the Burnish are definitely being mistreated, horrifically mistreated for that matter. In BNA, I have no idea what the main plot is, to be quite honest. Like, okay, I know that there's obviously things going on with like Mitru like having been turned into a beastman against will, and the same for Natsuna. That's been made clear. And also like, that clearly Cray Hindsight is up to some bad mojo.
The players are all on the board.
But if these things feel so incidental to what's going on. I mean, if I may make another comparison, I've recently been watching Sailor Moon. And people have said that Sailor Moon like has filler in it, and I'll say this right. First off, I fundamentally disagree with that statement because there's always something new happening in Sailor Moon that develops the overall narrative, even if the episodes don't really like have much to them, like in terms of like that. There's at least a nugget of detail. And the fact that Sailor Moon is doing better than this show, which has quarter of the no, it really does feel like that to me.
There's way more than a nugget of detail in each of these 3 episodes.
but not towards the main plot as far as I can
Totally.
see. I don't have
Well,
any. Well,
I guess
to explain then, tell me what I'm missing.
Well, I guess it depends too on like what you think is important in the show, because episode 6 was an incredibly huge character moment and reveal that Nazuna is still alive and here, and she's like now, instead of reuniting with Michiru, she's like fundamentally at odds with her. Like that was like game changing.
It's a character moment, but what does it matter for the main plot?
Well, you gotta believe though that the religion. So we don't know going forward, right? But like
There you go. We don't know.
the Genro Kyodon is gonna factor in to the story. But like we got, like you said, we got the pharmacy chairman watching them. And
That's not
sort
enough,
of putting
though.
them together, but it is a nugget. You said, "Oh, Sailor Moon with the nuggets doing better."
No. Well, just to point out though, like when I say nuggets in Sailor Moon, first off, that show did have more time. Let's be fair here. You know, by like the halfway point of Sailor Moon, things had changed substantially. There were new villains in there. We had an idea of what they wanted to do, what their overall end goal was. You know. I have no fucking clue what Cray Hindsight, I meant to say. Sorry.
Sure.
I have no idea what Cray Hindsight actually wants. All I know is he's basically twirling his metaphorical mustache saying, Mitru's interesting, yes. I'm like, that's not enough for me. Like, I'm not saying saying that that needs to be established in the first episode, but I would expect it in a 12-episode show to be established by the midpoint.
But
I've got no fucking clue.
Well, it would be one thing if the show were juggling a million balls in the air, but it's not. Like, all the players are on the board, and they're now free to. They have plenty of time to, like, move forward with what appears to be a pretty straightforward, like, what happened to these people was some kind of medical experimentation, and move forward into that. These 3 episodes had great, like, Yuki asked, like, what's the point? I thought they were incredible character building and very, very needed, I think, after the first 3 episodes where we got a lot of world build, so much world building. I feel like these episodes were such a breath of fresh air. It helped me,
world
like...
building in these ones, though, annoyingly enough, in episode 4 and then episode 6 with the long backstory of the Silver Wolf.
Oh, but it's like, it was the main focus to me felt like the characters, and there wasn't so much introductory stuff. It was like the characters had all this room to breathe and take center stage, and they were just fun. Episode 5, the point of that was fun. It was fucking a great time. Hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful episode. It made me care more about Michiru. Made me care more about the baseball team. People, like, when something was going to happen to Jackie, I was like, no, Jackie, no. And episode 4, I think, like, it was like, it seems like pretty self-contained, but like, like Flip, like, I think is going to come back around and be important. So I think he needed to be in the episode a bit. And we got to see her, like, his daughter. And the point, I think, of that episode was, that episode to me felt like what we were looking for, at least what I was looking for early on in the show, with like, oh, this show is going to be about the same kind of Beastars-y discrimination type stuff. And I think that like episode 4 approached that, the material approached that in a really interesting way, like way kind of indirectly and different from like a very kind of straightforward approach that we've seen a lot before in anthropomorphic animal stories. And then episode 6, yeah, we found it was, after those 2 episodes, a sort of one-off, insulated story. Insulated, not the right word, because it's connected to the others, but you know what I mean. It was a self-contained problem introduced, problem solved, and then a really fun character episode. Then, like you said, a little bit more world building, a lot of great character stuff, and it's really set the table now for the plot to move forward, which I'm hopeful it will. But no, I had a great time with these episodes. I thought they were fantastic and much needed for me.
I need to set my cards on the table here. Like, in a vacuum, each of these episodes was good, if not great. But don't give me the breadcrumbs of a plot by saying, "Oh, look, this guy's got like shit going on with like mixing stuff up with people and Beastman DA," and then don't do anything with it. If you're not going to develop the plot at this point, don't put it in there.
Oh, they have 7 episodes to go.
Why have we had to wait 6 episodes for even a bit of this to happen, though? Like, that's what's frustrating me. I don't know really much more than when I started. And what's more, it doesn't feel like the narrative is actually trying to drive towards that either. It's not like Michiru's running into roadblocks, constantly trying to find this out. She just seems to fall into the plot.
But if I didn't get these episodes, I wouldn't give a shit about what the overall plot was going to be anyway. I have to care.
Both.
I have to care about
Why
these
not
people.
Both. Why not both? That's what I'm asking here. You can do both, absolutely. But I'm not getting that. You know what? I feel for Michiru, I really do. But don't give me, like I said with Franks, this is why I'm getting the Franks said, don't give me this overarching, this might be bad for them narrative, and don't fucking do anything with it. Like, build it up gradually at a good pace. That's why I brought up Sailor Moon. Because, yeah, you get a little bit each episode over the course of those fucking 50 episodes, or 46 episodes, rather. You're always learning something new. Or there's a change in the status quo of the relationships between the villains or the main characters. Blah,
You're telling
blah,
me
blah,
you didn't
blah.
learn anything from these episodes? Like, I don't know. I think.
Like what? Again, tell me, what have I missed?
Well, but like, I don't know. I felt like I learned so much about all these people, and
well, okay, you're talking about people though. I am talking about like the way the world and before you say
well, the religion.
The religion's just come out of nowhere. Like that doesn't.
No, they've talked about the Silver Wolf previously, and they're
didn't
just
mention it necessarily religion. Yeah, the kids mention it, but it seems to me more like he was a figure of like legend rather than religion. There's still even none of the religious iconography behind that until now.
Well, I'm saying that it is not out of nowhere though. That they have set that piece on the table and they're kind of circling back to it.
Well, why do we have to have the exposition dump in episode 6 then? Why could this have not been built up over time? Yeah, like the whole here's the history of it. You know, the whole flashback at the start. Can that not have been built up over time? If this is so important, why has this not been like mentioned earlier?
Well, I think just that each episode has had a different purpose. It would feel weird and shoehorned in if like they're doing flashbacks of religion and doing pharmaceutical man. But you're asking for all these things to be built in over time, and I'm saying that doesn't work like that. I don't think that like some episodes need to be focused on particular slices of the world or particular characters, and it's would distract or take away from that to like in the episodes, in those episodes, just be jumping around to hit all these sort of check marks. I mean, I don't think it's like a perfect show, but to me, like, I don't know, it's been really enjoyable, and I feel like, you know, I have a better grounding in the world and sort of had time to digest what the plot is, or at least kind of some of the mysteries. Like, I mean, I think, you know, it is a mystery what's happened to Michiru, right? And it is so bound up with her character that some of the stuff that we think is character reveals, you know, it sort of bleeds over into like, quote unquote, like plot divorced from characterization. Yeah, I mean, I think what I'm trying to say is that we still don't know about the mayor's role in what's been going on. And we get like tantalizing little drips, and it has been drips up to this point. And I mean, I can sympathize with your point of view here that like, I wish we get more about the pharmacy and the conspiracy and the medical stuff. But I think like that's a fair criticism, but I think like to put so much weight to it to say that the show is like failing or is like Frank's level is Frank's level or something like that.
Mate, I have to interrupt you there. You misunderstand. I'm saying that the show is failing not because of that. I have a specific talking point that is not quite related to that will come later that will explain that.
Well, you did say it was Frank's level, and I'm saying like nothing here approaches
but not because of this reason that we're talking about right now.
Okay, it seems like that's what you're saying, but tell me.
No.
Okay.
I'll come back to that later because we have more Patreon questions.
Okay. Well, I think I've answered Yuki's question that I think, yeah, I think I've talked about like the points of each episode, and I'll go into episode 4. I can go into it now, or I can go into it later, like my stuff on episode 4.
We have more Patreon questions though.
Okay, hit me with the rest of those.
Okay, so this one comes from Kate Rose. We've got a couple here. Where do you think Michiru and Natsuna contracted Beastman-itis?
The macaroons.
The macaroons. Was it when they were in the accident together? My hard bet here is that it probably was during the accident, and they were given some sort of like secret, like that slowly changed their DNA over time. I mean, the show is Brand New Animal. It's about genes and all that. Clearly, someone's been mucking with their DNA. That's my guess.
I think it happened before, and that's why they survived the accident. I think that be it the macaroons or some other kind of, I think that medicine has been sort of testing out. My theory is that they've been putting sort of drugs into food or water or whatever, like throwing out a wide net to see if anything would sort of would stick, right? And they survived this accident, and so because they turned up in this hospital and miraculously survived, then these records would be known to medicine or Silvastra, and then they can now follow these individuals and use them for whatever nefarious purposes they have. This is my going theory on how they contracted it.
I'll expand on that and say that that's my theory, like that they've been at some point their DNA has been put through the centrifuge and scrambled like so many eggs. But what I am more interested in is the why. Why are they doing it? Mm-hmm. Now I'm not going to go back to my previous complaint, but by saying that we don't know anything. But rather, what I want to say is I want the revelation of why they've done it to be satisfying, and I want it to tie into the idea of this whole prejudice thing that's going on here as well. I mean, if you could, in theory, call me crazy, like we discussed this kind of a little bit with listeners, but like obviously, the parallel like between being a Beastman in this show and indeed like is in some way with Beastars is to say people of color, for example, or ethnic minorities, people with different sexual orientations than cishet, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You could say that. But I mean, I think you actually said, we discussed before, like this is always the case where you're using an analogy for, say, for example, people who are queer. Why not make it that way? And so if it turned out that the nefarious, like this could be some sort of like Get Out kind of thing, where they're literally turning people into beastmen to make more like slave/cheap labor, which would then actually reflect on like the economic divide we see in real life between white people and people of color. Mm-hmm. It depends where they want to take it. And that's what I'm most curious about. Yeah. But I'm going to hint a little bit my major issue with the show that has come to mind since watching those. I think this show is fundamentally flawed in how it examines racism and discrimination because of the way that the whole world of it is set up. And that's why I think that even if that is a case that we find out, they are literally turning more people into beastmen, although obviously, I think actually more I say that, the more I realize the simpler explanation is they want superpowered beastmen as soldiers, because that's what Michiru can do.
Right.
Just the exploding.
It's the Weapon X program. She's Wolverine. There you go. Enjoy that shit. But like that's why I think that if that's the case, and that being the villain plot, like kind of doesn't work for me because there's a more fundamental issue to it. But again, I'm hinting and dancing around the issue because I want to save it for discussion in a little bit. All right, next question from Sailor. I know, never mind. Sorry, from Kate Rose. I almost said her Discord name, which is Sailor Idol Mars. Do you view Michiru's behavior the same as Natsuna? Is her helpfulness more selfish than it appears? There's one thing I want to establish off the bat here, which is that we kind of have a reverse situation with Michiru and Natsuna, where we've seen Michiru throughout the show, but what she actually does and what we know of her, like as a personality-wise and such, from the flashbacks is limited relative to Natsuna, where we know more about her prior to her arrival, of course, from the flashbacks to the point when we meet her. Indeed, the thing about her being a pop idol is something that's mentioned, like in the flashback when she's listening to the music,
which is the ED, which is a banger.
Oh yeah, they actually play the was it the ending? Oh, yeah, they played the ending as well actually at the party. Come to think
Yep.
of it,
That
which
is
is
what
also a
like
great.
triggers the flashback.
Yeah, which is great in itself. Like it's a great ending. Don't get me wrong. I
Yeah.
think it's fantastic. I am gonna say no. I don't think like Mitru, like, okay, she's clearly needing some way of getting by in Anima City. Like she needs board, she needs lodging, she needs money, that kind of thing. But I don't think it's unreasonable for her to stick her neck out to go and do that for the sake of that. I think Natsuno has just been like trying to make a false equivalence here, perhaps maybe to make herself feel better about what she's doing now that she's been rightly called out about her behavior.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is sort of a scene we've seen before, a dynamic, an accusation, character moments we've seen before. It doesn't mean that they are poorly executed here, and it doesn't mean like it's still, even after seeing it a bunch of times, doesn't like hit me, because like it's, I don't know, it's a thing that it's very real, right? Like for people who are doing good things to think about why they're doing them. And this gets into the whole like question of do we sort of look at what's ethical purely based on like actions or outcomes, or do we examine motive and intent as well? And Nazuna is saying your intent in doing all these things is selfish, so you're not really this good person that you claim to be. And that's like, for a lot of young people, I think this, like, encountering that idea for the first time is like a huge body blow. You're like, oh my God, like, is this really true? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I helping people? And it's important for folks growing up to figure out a story to tell about themselves, to kind of existentially anchor themselves in why they live the life they live, why they have the code of ethics they do, why they subscribe to certain behaviors but think other behaviors are bad. Like, and this is, she doesn't have that. She doesn't have that story to throw back at Nazuna. So Nazuna is able to kind of get one over on her here. But luckily, again, like, Michiru is very much like, what I'm hearing is désilluve. This is not the voice of my friend Nazuna. But I agree with you. Like, I don't think this is can be her real behavior. Whether or not, I think by the end of it, she'll have the story to tell. She'll have her reasons for being a good person that she can talk about. But she doesn't have them now. But that doesn't mean that at bottom she's not a good person. She is.
Yeah. That actually leads us on to nicely onto our next next question, which is, after meeting Nazuna, how do you feel about this character interactions? I'm going to say inconclusive here for one reason and one reason alone, which is we don't have a full-bodied explanation of what happened to her between the kidnapping and where she is now. I mean, if she's like this cult leader, and she certainly mentions that she's now a pop idol, so that in some way is a good bit of evidence to say that she's fully aware of what she's doing and is just using them for her own ego. But oftentimes you find with cults that they often groom, like, a successor. And so is she, like, in that cult inside of her own free will? Has she been groomed to be a part of them? It's hard to say. But what I will say is what I think that the show is trying to go for with this is the idea of, like, what I said before about people's true nature, where, you turn into a beast, like, and that shows who you really are. But in turn, like, I think that this is the reverse for Natsuna, where she may potentially be showing who she's always been, but has just kept cloaked away until this transformation was forced upon her.
Yeah, I think that could very well be true. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done. I was just rambling.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's a good, that last point especially is a good point. Like, and interesting, you think about, like, is this who she really is? Because she's being an asshole. I said it before, and I'll say it again. She's being a huge jerk, and but we don't know why. It could be a million things, right? This could be a defense mechanism to try to push Michiru away from something Nazuna believes is very dangerous. this could be her true nature, or this could be, like you said, like brainwashing from the cult that she deep down doesn't believe, but Michiru has to kind of help her shake off. There's a lot of ways this could go. I hope that the show does go there. I hope that we get, and I'm confident we will get, based on things I've heard and read, at least something more of an examination of cults and religions and some kind of critique going on there, because I think that stuff's super interesting. So I'm very excited about this development, even though it's a new development in episode 6. Like, I think it's very exciting, and there's a lot of interesting stories they could tell here.
Yeah. I note, by the way, as well, that thing I said about Natsuna is the inverse of Nina, in a sense, because Nina is someone who is pretending to be somebody she's not, but like her real self is her Beastman form. Whereas with Natsuna and also Michiru, that's the opposite, because that's something that's been forced on them after the fact. They were human, and now they've become Beastmen. Mm-hmm. So that's an interesting inversion that you might want to keep a finger on there. Okay, so the next question: what caused Michiru to be suddenly able to transform back to human? Before I answer this, I'm going to say that I really want this to be developed more, because I felt that the way that this happened, like, just completely kind of out of nowhere. And then there was a bit of thought where Michiru was obviously very happy with that, but something about it felt very underwhelming.
Yeah.
In the same way that Shiro revealing that he could turn human was underwhelming. As the big reveal that they can do that, which in turn, I think, by the way, also undermines the entire, I mean, I said on the previous podcast, like, it's like that thing from X-Men 2 where Mystique says we shouldn't have to hide ourselves, which is fair. I get that. But on the other hand, I also do feel like, that if the thing with Mystique, though, is that she literally was the only person who could do that in that franchise. You had people like Nightcrawler and all the other mutants who obviously didn't look human, who could, couldn't hide that. But every single Beastman, with exception Michiru until this point, could hide their form, which is why it felt weird to hear Nina saying in that episode, "Did I come across as a human?" And I'm like, you looked it and you sounded it, but that doesn't seem so strange to me. It doesn't seem like there's anything different about your psychology or the way you talk when you're in human form, which is weird. They still act human, and that's why I find this thing a bit difficult to process.
This is what's so fascinating to me about this show, is because, and I wish we had someone on here, a person of color, a woman, a queer person.
White guys do anime.
Yeah,
right. It's terrible.
Yeah.
We are the mayonnaise.
Because this whole episode, to me, like, you talked about all the Beastmen walking around in their human forms in the city. Imagine being so oppressed and having to repress yourself all the time that even when you go into a sanctuary for people just like you, most of the time you're worried about appearing normal. Imagine that. There's a point in the episode where I think it was episode 6. I think it's episode 6, but someone asked Michiru, "You can go human again. Like, why aren't you going human again?" And she says, "It's like walking around in high heel shoes all the time." Blending in or passing is exhausting for someone who can be different and is different and is part of one of those groups. It can be very, very hard. And I think it's a great analogy, like the walking around in high heel shoes all the time.
Well,
sorry. I have more to say, but go ahead.
Well, I want what you brought up there about the way, that it's exhausting to be in human form. I want you all to put a pin in that, because that's going to tie into why I think this depiction of discrimination...
For me, sure, it's exhausting in particular.
Okay. That's fine. Well,
this is how she feels, not how everyone else feels.
But I have a sideways thought to that.
Okay.
Which is why I think that this depiction of racism, discrimination, and such is not only deeply flawed, but also potentially offensive. That's how deep I'm going with this. So, but then again, just to put my cards on the table here, because you may be listening to this on VOD or audio or whatever, the last time I filled in my census form, like where you get your ethnicity section, it says white British, Irish British, etc. I had to go to the other box, tick that, and write mayonnaise in there, because that's my skin tone. I am the whitest motherfucker you will ever meet. So maybe, as Doc said, you probably should be better off actually turning off this podcast and listening to, someone who is a person of color or a woman, or who is bi, queer, LGBTQ plus, etc., rather than listening to me about this. I mean, I really shouldn't be arguing against my own podcast, because I'm quite proud of what we do. But at the same time, we've got to accept our limitations here, which is that the last time I can't even spell the word melanin. Never mind, have it in my skin. Let's be quite honest here. But I'll come back to that in a bit. So you were saying, though, Doc?
Oh, I mean, what was the point you were making about Nina? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, for me, it's really easy to imagine someone who, is so worried about passing as quote-unquote normal to not know if they did it. But, us who are normal to look at it and be like, I don't understand. Of course you did. Because, I don't know, that's just our level. That's just our kind of default gauge. By the way, in this episode, there's a hilarious, at one point, Nina says, I was listening to human music the other day, and my dad got mad at me, and I was like, wait a minute. Human music? Does it sound, do you make different sounding music? I think it has to be like a racial thing. The dad doesn't want them listening to things by humans. But
there's that, but also would have been an amazing explanation, but again, because of the same reason that they aren't blind with their bat beastmen. Obviously animals hear different frequencies, so can you imagine that if they made that a didactic thing?
Right, but they're not animals. They're not animals.
They're not. They're not animals, but they're also not human, which is
neither fish nor fowl.
Oh boy. All right, we have one more patron. Oh, actually, I didn't really even answer it, which is to say,
what was the question?
What do I think caused Mitru suddenly be able to transform to human? I'm just going to say it's a mental block. I'm going to say that the ability was always there, and she just simply...
Yeah.
I mean, we actually see at the start of the episode her trying to do it, and I think that it was that discussion with Nina that broke past that emotional or mental barrier. She basically needs someone to talk through her problems, and then have that. Which is why also we see her suddenly developing the cheetah legs in episode 5. Emotional stress, or adrenaline, seems to be the trigger for her gaining more control powers, breaking past these barriers.
I agree.
Cool. All right. Final question from Kate. Please share your thoughts on the deliberate nod to folklore and commonly used tropes of foxes and tanuki that the Beastman Isis, Mitru, and Azuna have. Is capable of changing with Beastman. All right. I'm going to be honest here. I'm going to pass this to Doc because I know very little.
I don't know much either. I only the kitsune are tricky. That's basically it. That's all I know. The wolves are noble, godlike. Tanuki, what are the raccoon dogs? I don't really know too much about the personalities of these mythical creatures beyond that. So I'm not a folklore expert myself. So apologies, Kate. Sorry. We'll have to read into it, I guess, and maybe we'll get more out of the show that way. But yeah, I don't know at the moment.
So sorry, we couldn't get more of an answer to that. But
we need to get on. We need to get on here. Anime commentary, Patrick from there. He knows all about this folklore.
There you go. So I mean, I don't want to. I mean, I waffle on about topics I probably don't know much about anyway. So I'm definitely drawing a line under this one as saying I don't fucking know. Although I will say that what would be interesting is if the show actually blended real world mythology and by having people mentioned this is, there are, well, in fact, they actually do that because they mentioned that mythological figures like Ganesh were beastmen in that PowerPoint.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because they take on those forms so they could have they could be gods, right?
So for example, Egyptian gods like Osiris.
That was interesting. I liked that.
Yeah. So clearly, real world mythology has been imported into this show. So what would be interesting is if characters actually reference real world mythology wholesale and said you're a tanuki, do you have the powers of a tanuki referenced here, etc., which would explain to the audience I mean, this is Netflix, by the way, so one would assume that the trigger had in mind it was going for a wider international market. But then again, fuck the Gaijins. Who cares about them? Fuck the dirty Gaijins. But that would have also explained to the audience, okay, here's the mythological reference, and then Michiru can go, no, I can't do that. I've got stretchy arms, but I can't
Can't
do that.
maybe Tanuki can transform into people, and that's how they blend into society. And so it's funny that Michiru can't turn back into a human form,
Well,
at least not
I,
initially.
I don't know, but I
I
mean,
think that's
obviously
the
we're gonna
case.
have. Well, we're just gonna wait for the Saras of I crossover where they turn up in Kappa form in Anime City.
Exactly. Yep.
It makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Tell me where the boys are, Kepi, and where Shiro's
Kepi.
just going like holding him like that. He goes, I don't know, Kero.
Kepi falls in with Flip. Flip is the only one that can help him support his drug habit.
All right. So we'll leave it there, but we may revisit that question if we get some more info next time. So we'll keep that one on the tab, so to speak. If you want to take part in asking us questions about this show on a week by week basis, head on over to our Patreon. Get yourself subscribed to us. I think it's the $3 tier. Is it, Doc, or is it the two? I can't remember. I think it's the free.
To ask questions about BNA,
Yes.
I think it's just the two, since this is Stream
The
of
two?
Thought, the
Yeah.
free.
So for the princely price of I don't know, a 48 ouncer from your local 7-Eleven or whatever it costs over there. I've not been to America in a very long time, and I doubt I'll go anytime soon because of the plague. But yeah, for the princely sum of that per month, you can get yourself access to our Discord and ask us questions about about the show as we go along. Like even if it's just silly stuff or more serious stuff, we're happy to take all comers on that. Doc, I'm going to politely request that I go and refill my beer for my
me as well.
coming nuclear bomb of a talking point. So get ready for that. We'll be back in just a moment.
We're back.
We're back. Hey, before we get going, I actually need to apologize because I've just realized as we left off there, I said something that's given the day that we're currently on. It's probably actually quite offensive, which is I referenced a nuclear bomb. Why is that a problem? Well, today I realized is literally as I stood up from my chair, for which I can only profusely apologize, is the 75th anniversary of the Hiroshima bombing. So I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to make that. I just completely slipped out. Apropos of nothing.
Well, your boy didn't know, if that's any consolation. But yeah, no, apologies. Yes. And wow, gosh, I don't know what to say, but yes, thank you for mentioning that, Shadon. But now,
All right,
discussion
now
time.
we're on to discussion time. Who boy? Shall I just get right into it and
Go
just
for
say
it.
why I have a massive problem? So this is not anything that's specifically really been brought about by any given episode that I've seen, but it's kind of just fallen in my head as I've thought more and more about the show. But I've also been thinking about it in response to, believe it or not, H-Bomber Guy's recent Ruby video.
Oh man, I still haven't
Because
finished that.
Because there's a race of beastmen in that, and that handles racism really poorly, as it turns out. Okay, so I'm going to just run this by you, Doc.
Given the construction of Ruby, it is not surprising that
I've
they
actually
handle
watched the
anything poorly. What a
Well, I
weird.
watched the first.
For those of you who don't know, what a weird way to make it. So it basically, like, Monty at least the first 3 seasons, I haven't watched the video to see how the production process changed after that, but he would just animate shit, and basically the writers would be like, oh god, how do we have to write a story around some of these action scenes, and like Monty would have things in his head that would be the story, and then they had to figure out, the other 2 writers, who apparently were pretty bad and didn't really write anything, how to connect everything together. What a ramshackle, like, I mean, they weren't talking to each other, like, just a really bizarre way to write anything.
Actually watched I'll not spend any real time on this, but I've actually watched those first 3 seasons of Ruby, and funny enough, it was the end of season 3 that said to me, basically told me, no, this show's garbage, just leave it. So anyway, point being though is that in that video, H-Bomb mentions, like, okay, what happens, like, you have to, when you actually, like, write a story where there is a marginalized group of people depicted through some means, like, be the beastmen as they are in Ruby, and in turn in BNA, you've got to be careful with how you portray the society, in that you've got to show that there's racism actually going on, which I will credit BNA this, it does. We get plenty of examples of that. We have more than flashbacks. We have the baseball incident that I mentioned, and obviously you can interpret and interpolate from the baseball incident with the bat player. Like, he did that in a stadium. He murdered all the people there. Can you imagine how that must have set relations back? Can you imagine all the things happening?
I mean, episode 1, right?
Yeah, it was unequivocally the wrong thing. However, here's the thing that I've kind of realized. There's 2 points that I think this show really, really fucks up on. And I could be wrong on this. And again, I'm as white as the driven snow, so you would be best asking a person of color about this rather than me. First off, it was explicitly mentioned at various points in this show, and this was actually before these episodes, that beastmen tend to take a human form and only go into beast form as a means of aggression, like, fronting.
Well, that's not the only reason they do it. It was stated by the lady lion in episode 2 that in this situation, if you are out, if you have your beast form out, it means you want to throw down.
Why don't we see more people in beast form outside of that then? Most of the time we see them in human form.
Again, because I think it's like interesting to think about, what if you were so oppressed that even in a sanctuary city for people just like you still focused on and still were very concerned about fitting in and being normal in terms of what the standard was in the outside larger world.
Okay, so the first thing I'm saying, if I'm on track with this, that is generally considered faux pas to be in beast form because it's like a sign of impending violence.
I don't think so. I mean, that's all the sports teams do it. I mean, granted, it is a violent game, but the manager is that way. I don't know. It is not stated that that is the reason. It is in that moment that Minsheru's in episode 2, she's told, in this situation, if you're out, it means you want to go. I don't know if it's the case that it's... Oh, I mean, if that were true, then, you know, the man who is the rooster who cock-a-doodle-doos every morning, you know, he turns into a rooster to do that. Doesn't mean he wants to fight anybody.
Well, not in that case, but I think more times than not, they're more often in human form than beast form. Even though there's plenty of reasons they could just be they could just be in beast form. But here's the thing,
I think that's the point.
If that's true, well, this is the thing. I think the show should really clarify that, because my reading of it basically is this: if you then want to analogize that, that is like the way that like a minority works, where when they're at their true self, that actually means that they're violent. That in itself is pretty fucking problematic, in my opinion, if that's the thing that you're going with there. That only when they are the true selves can they be violent, like they're violent, destructive, they're, you know, that kind of thing. But that leads into my wider point, which is Animasis is a shithole. There is no two ways about it. And I previously said, you know, like, oh, okay, it's the fault of human hubris. Like, you know, they are still human in some sense. They, you know, tried to make this sanctuary for themselves, and it's clearly, you know, not works, because all we really see in this show is crime. If I would say, like, in some ways, this almost feels like a police procedural in a lot of points, you know, like we have episode to episode, like crimes and capers and mysteries, but we very rarely see anything truly positive about Anima City, in my opinion, even down to the fact that there are long lines at the registration, you know, desk, which can be bypassed, by the way. Right. If you do things for, like, you know, the government and all that.
Or so, if you're angry and beat up the people in front of you. Right.
Yeah, exactly. But there is very little positive depiction of beastmen in this show. Would you agree?
No.
Beyond Be True. Well, okay, who then? To explain. Tell me. Lay out.
The two people the two people that are housing her at the Ministry of New Animals or whatever. They're awesome. They're great.
That's two people.
Shiro.
What else?
Shiro, the mayor.
Is Shiro's a Batman though, and the mayor's like, you know, I don't know.
Let's see. Those are a lot of the characters that are protagonists. I think Nina for sure. I think the jury is still out on Nazuna. Like, she's a complicated character. So that's like but I think those are like the most of the major characters. I mean, and people like, was it Grandmama? I don't remember her name. Like, she is doing a bad thing, but I think, again, she's like a complicated character that's not just like a evil caricature. There is an evil caricature called Flip.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, even then, she's still selling children.
Yeah.
I think that...
I've named a lot of characters. That's like almost half a dozen in a show that doesn't have a huge cast.
You've named a lot of characters, though, but you've not named a lot of, like, places, you know, and people, like, groups of people. We don't see the wider populace. Like, it doesn't seem like be engaging in pleasant or positive activity. It seems like, for the most part, the place is a dump and a shill. And my wider point to this is... Sorry, there's another tiny fucking insect flying around my face. My wider point to this is the show meaning to tell us that if you gave an oppressed minority a sanctuary for them to build their own place on, that it would turn immediately, or rather over the course of years, to shit?
I think the show is saying the side. Well,
is that the black on black violence argument here? Because it sure reads it to me like in some ways.
Well, the citizens didn't build this place. The pharmaceutical.
They filled it. Filled it up though.
Well, yeah, I'm saying the society. Well, listen, that's like blaming us for problems of capitalism. We fill up the land, but the system that's created by the people in power is the reason why we have a lot of the problems we have, beyond like the personal ethical issues. But who created the society, who made the system? It wasn't all these people. It was like the mayor, scientist, the pharmacy man. I think they created it, and they created a very imperfect society. The mayor, I think, at least at the moment, is presenting as someone who is trying to make it a good place for beastmen. But it's obviously not that. It was flawed from the moment it was made, and it was not made by regular people. It was made by rich, powerful people. Again, it's like you said, people that don't understand the needs of the populace, when you were calling it like a safe space, have like created this sanctuary city that is ill-fitting for everyone. And you still, you can create a place that's like, okay, this is only for these kind of people, so that these kind of people can flourish. Oh, but hey, there's still massive income inequality. Oh, but hey, there's still massive poverty. There's still like all these extortion schemes, all this different stuff that is gonna, like, the problems are still gonna continue, and they're systemic problems. And so I don't think it's blaming, the show is not like blaming, I don't think, like the beastman populace of the city for the problems.
Well, a couple of responses to that. First off, like you say that they created obviously the pharmaceutical company and all that created the city, but they simply, like, what did when I say it's like, what was involved in that creation? Did they lay down buildings? What are the laws? Like, are they selecting specific stratas of people who clearly are shitheads to go there? This stuff needs to be explained.
Well, they say all are welcome.
Okay, so in that case, it's just a cross-section of the population. So why is what the show is presenting to us of Animus City so broadly on a macro level terrible?
Well,
does that not read like really, really iffy to you? That's like, okay, it's substitute your own oppressed minority in here. Like, if they're, for example, we're all people of color, you give them their own place, and suddenly it all becomes like a violent shithole. Something seems really sketchy about that to me.
I mean, I don't think so. A similar sort of thing happened in The Wire, where, like, there was created, like, not exactly a sanctuary city for people of color, but basically, like, it's been a long time since I've seen The Wire. It was called Amsterdam, and it was a place where, like, police couldn't police, and, like, you could sell drugs there, you could do drugs there, like, you could just be free of the police. The police kind of abandoned it. I don't know. I'm trying to think of an analogy, but I can't think of a good one. But anyway, it was like these city blocks, and, this, I think, is part of the lesson that, like, okay, when slavery was ended in America, right? Well, we've ended slavery. That's that. We can now wash our hands of that problem. Oh, what? The people have no land, have no possessions, have no way to kind of get to a point where they are on equal footing with the rest of society. Doesn't matter. We've ended it. And I think this is part of, like, the criticism here you could make of Animus City. Like, well, here's some land. Here you go, beastmen. Here's a place you can just be beastmen. It doesn't solve all the problems. And I'm not saying, I don't want to say, like, oh, BNA is like an analogy for, like, a Reconstruction South. It's not a perfect analogy. It's not one-to-one at all. That would be super reductive and a bad analysis. But
it's not wrong as well. The thing is, in Reconstruction South, though, like, there were black and white people living in the same neighborhoods. This is a strictly, dare I say, like, completely segregated space where it's just beastmen. That's the key point I'm getting at here. You've given it a space where it's specifically them and no one else. It's gone completely to shit.
Well,
it's also with the show's power to show us positive, like, examples of the wider population, not just these select few individuals.
I mean, but like, I think we see like some locations, like the house that she's living in. We see her walking through parks. We see, like, nice neighborhoods and stuff, but we see a lot of bad places and shitty places too. And we see, like, the underbelly of society. And I think, part of the idea is
water was shut off. The baseball team's water was shut off.
I know. It's a microcosm of society at large, man. Like, these problems exist for everyone too, for human people too. Like, there's, like, a massive homeless population in Japan. They don't talk about that. Like, I mean, I think they've given them some land, but they haven't eliminated any of the other sort of societal problems. All these problems exist on the human side too.
The problem is, though, as well, is beyond that. Animus City has only been 10 years old. Like when you say like, that's the like we've been talking about the problems of capitalism. That's a problem that's been evolving, developing over a very long period of time. Even the stuff relating to slavery, like, okay, it was still recent. Jim Crow ended in the 1960s, but that's still more time than the time span that's happened when Anima City first was open to the, Beastman public to the present day.
So what you're telling me is it's unbelievable if in 2020 there was an island someone made and they were like, only gay people can live here, that in 10 years you wouldn't see all the same problems that we have in regular society.
Well, I'm saying that the show seems to very heavily lean on presenting it all quite negatively, in my opinion. That's the problem.
But you brought up the 10-year point, and I'm saying that the passage of the fact that it is a young society doesn't matter because it's a little space that is formed from the society we have in now. So of course it's going to have the same problems that the society we live in now has. Like I don't see an issue there.
But I'm not talking about like the wider out. I'm talking about what the show chooses to show us in its runtime, which is crime constantly. People selling children to slavery, that kind of thing. There needs to be a better balance because otherwise, to me, it reads like you give like a oppressed minority a space in which they can flourish on their own, and you will have them selling people into slavery, kids that is specifically. You'll have, rigged sports. You'll have, gang violence, all this sort of stuff. It feels sketchy to me. I think that it needed to be more careful with how it presents all this, because what the funny thing is, I thought about this about Promare as well. Promare is a lot better, in my opinion, about handling this because, for one thing, we get to see the Burnish, just living their lives, like the guy in the pizza parlor. He just wanted to make pizza, and they fucking came and got rid of him for no reason, basically. Mm-hmm. But I feel that they also kind of fucks up in the end for no adequately explained plot reason by making Cray Foresight. I got that right then. Hey, I almost said hindsight by accident. By making Cray Foresight a Burnish as well, which is a bit weird.
Oh,
now,
that's perfect. That's perfect.
Why?
Because, of course you were going to have people who are oppressed be so oppressed that they're self-hating. I feel like that's this is why you have police officers of color assaulting people of color along with white police officers. I think that is perfection. Like the system can make the people that it's oppressing feel like they need to be part of the oppression.
Oh, miss though, that's a last minute revelation. It's not publicly known that he's
no. You see it. You can tell if you watch the movie. There's points you can absolutely tell.
Oh no, yes, but that's what we can tell. I'm not saying it's known to the public in Promare.
Okay.
That's the problem. They don't know that he's a Burnish.
I know it's a cool twist at the end.
But it's a cool twist that I feel undermines the kind of narrative they were going for, because it turns out, all this oppression you were suffering, it turns out it was one of your own that was doing it. And here's the thing,
isn't that great?
I'm not so naive as to say that doesn't happen. But when it's the actual central idea of your film that this oppression has been going on, and then the sole architects of it was one of their own, and it wasn't systemic, built up over time kind of thing.
Oh, but it was that too. Now, not to turn this into a Promare discussion, but I mean, it was that too. I feel like it was that too, but he just happened to now be in the position of leadership, and was a self-hating person.
This is the thing about Promare, though, in a lot of the people.
It's such a short runtime.
in that opening montage, are people who are clearly rebelling against abuse of some description, but that seems to then fade away over time. That's not a plot point anymore. Look, I'll not get into Promare too much right now, but basically, I'm gonna just leave it and put my cards on the table and say, I want to see the show try and turn this around. In my opinion, I'm not gonna say it's definitive fact because I'm a white person trying to talk about racism. That's already a dumb idea in of itself. But basically, I think that in line with a lot of the way that Trigger sometimes handles this stuff, I think that they don't give it the necessary amount of care that they should do. And this also is funny enough also tied into my point about why can this show not be about something more than just crime of the week stuff, that we've had going on here. And yeah, okay, there's stuff going on with characters and all that, but I want a wider plot going here. But yeah, I am of the opinion that I think that if you want to read this in a certain way, it can be kind of damning to say, hey, you give this oppressed minority their own place, and suddenly fucking flies back again. And suddenly, you know, like in the space of 10 years, it's complete, like, you know, it's RoboCop. It's fucking Detroit, you know, in RoboCop. Like, that's not a good look to me. It also especially doesn't help by the way that there are no people of color who are actually in human form that I remember seeing. Which is this complaint that H-Bomber guy made about Ruby, funnily enough.
I think, is it Marie? Marie is a person of color.
Okay, you have one.
Well, yeah, I mean, can there always be more? Of course. Yes, definitely. But, I mean, you know, we could do with more, for sure. So, and again, I think that there are a lot of characters who are good people that it shows in the show who are beastmen. And I think, to me, what turns this around is less that, like it would be one thing if it was like Beastman land, a shithole, human society, amazing, the pinnacle of life itself, and it's totally good. Everyone is sweet and loving. It shows humans being like absolute dog shit to the just awful, like oppressing beastmen, catching them at the border and beating the shit out of them. Like, they're terrible. Even, and I'll get into my point here about episode 4, even the wokes at the party are awful. Awful.
I'm sorry, but every time someone says that word now, I just can't take it seriously.
The wokelets at Lisa's party.
Thing, right? Can I just say, can you ever imagine, like, saying to another person in the same room, like, you know, I think you might be a bit too woke? Like, how can you say that with a straight face? Right. Jesus Christ. The internet has really poisoned everything, hasn't it? It's just terrible.
The main point I want to say really quick before I talk about episode 4 is I think that the show is showing, you know, the underbelly of this society, because, you know, oh, it was the salt that Nina couldn't endure, Catherine. But I think that the point of view of the show is that society is shit, and that, like, human beings are pretty bad, and human and beastmen alike, there's all these kind of problems because human beings aren't great and the way that we are organized ain't great. And, you know, there's a lot of greedy people, a lot of people that want power, whether they're Ningen or Jujin, and that they're persons, and persons are not great. And so, yeah, I think if the show was like, it didn't have human beings also being terrible, I would think a lot more stock could be put in the argument you're making. But I think if she hung out... Oh, go ahead.
Just respond to that, though. Like, I'm not going to justify what the humans are doing in this show, but if that's the way that Beastmen have acted, like, you know, in general, I can kind of see why some people would get, like, violent towards them in that way. Look, this is the thing. Like, this is why I'm saying the show needs to put more, like, give more time to properly fleshing this kind of thing out and making it clear that there are plenty of, like, positive groups or presences of beastmen. I'm not talking about individuals. Like, just having simply, like, the rooster guy and the person who's playing Mitra, that's not enough. It's like I've said before about what we talked about in Listeners, where you have, like, you know, Johnny Rotten, like, complaining about, like, the government, like, you know, making their lives miserable. You can't simply portray this at a micro level of individuals. If you want to portray something negatively or positively in a society, you need that, and you need the macro level. And on the macro level, this show has broadly been Beastmen are shit, in my opinion.
And humans are shit. I mean, I think you can't escape it. I mean, it's the reason the Beastman society exists. Because human beings are shit.
But I don't think that then also cancels out my point that if you would, like, that the show is saying, well, you know what, if you gave them, like, a space where they were discriminated against in response to this, that it would just turn into a festering crap hole.
No, but that's the whole point, is that, like, discrimination is not the only society. Like, discrimination of humans to beastmen is not gonna, solving that isn't gonna solve society's problems.
Well, that's the thing, though. We're not solving the core problem back in the actual society that allow these two groups to blend together. We're making a separate space here, and oh look, they had the separate space, and it's already fallen to pieces. It almost
Again,
reads to me in some. It almost reads to me in some way like it can be analogous to like how you had takeovers of like military coups, for example, in say certain countries in Africa, where oh yeah, we installed this new guy who's going to solve everything for us. Oh look, 10 years later, no, it's just as bad as it began. That's not like if you're going to like make that as an analogy to groups of discriminated against in general, that to me like it's murky at best and terrible at worst, and it needs to be cleaner on this, in my opinion. It needs to be much more specific about it.
Okay. Do not agree, just because I think, and the two purposes of the show could be working at cross purposes here, because again, don't forget that the core idea of the show for Yoshinari is a young woman coming into her own, moving through the world, and trying to find her place in it. And I think these episodes do a killer job at like giving us fun, but also giving us scenes to remind us that that's happening. And it's just great. But so her encountering living a sheltered life, so to speak, right? A life at home, a life of dependence on her family. Now she's going out into the world, independent, seeing that society ain't all it's cracked up to be. Maybe
the paradise city where the grass is green and the girls are pretty.
Right. Maybe the idea is maybe those two are conflicting, like rubbing up against each other for you, that like, hey, the fact that she's a beastman and discovering how society is bad in Anima City reads to you like the show is saying beastmen are bad, when this is like a sort of personal journey of her kind of having her eyes open to what the world is like. And again, like Catherine said, I mean, I think the point of the show is that like no one's perfect. There's no perfect society. Not just that no one's perfect. I mean, I just think that everybody is shown in a really negative light. And the show is not saying that the Jujin beastmen are better than people. Nor is the show saying they deserve the violence they get, because the show would be then saying the humans deserve to have violence visited upon them for the awful things they do. The show is just painting everybody in this super flawed, like really bad kind of light, or at least there's something in people that when put in a society like ours could go very, very bad. But I want to talk about episode 4 again, at least the party scene, because especially for Grizz, who brought it up, and he mentioned how awkward the party was, and it was just such a perfectly executed scene. I thought, like, imagine, this is difficult to imagine because we've always been white and we're very white, but just imagine what it would be like for two Asian young women or dudes to walk into a party where everyone is dressed up as geisha, samurai, ninjas, kabuki dancers. Imagine how that would feel. Be so awkward. That's what it was like. They were these people at the party, and not really knowing any better, but not knowing anything, I think, is the damning thing. They're like appropriating the beastman ears and everything like that. And I don't think cultural appropriation is like, I think it's sort of a neutral thing. Like, you could use it sort of harmlessly, but it also can be used to exploit people, which is often the case.
Well, just to point out for people who are watching on the video on demand, do you see all of this shit here? That right there is what we call cultural appropriation in one form or another. Very sorry to say. So yeah, I agree with you. It's a term that like people on the internet seem to use like as if though it has a value to it, inherently a negative value, when in reality it is a value neutral term that you need to follow up additional context to explain why in this particular case doing a cultural appropriation is a bad thing.
Right. Exactly. I think it's often leads to bad outcomes, but those two things are separate. But aside from the sort of value of it, you'd be uncomfortable, I think, walking into a party where everyone was dressed up as outside or caricatured versions of you, your culture, your history. It would feel very weird. And Michiru does a great job of like illustrating how uncomfortable, but also it's awesome because you have Nina who wants to fit in so bad that she doesn't care. It's almost like she doesn't even see it. She's like, oh yeah, I'm one of you, woohoo. But then when they find out, I just love this. When they find out she's a Jujin, a beastman, they're not like, we're going to beat you up like all the other humans we've seen. No, it's something a little bit more insidious even. They drag her up on stage and they're like, look, it's a real life Jujin, a beastman, someone who's been oppressed. Aw, I feel so bad for you. Don't you guys? The suffering oh yeah, we feel so bad. Why don't you now do some tricks for us in the water? And then it's almost like this is a weird analogy. Maybe it's not perfectly right. But it's almost like, I mean, do you think like, well, you know what? I don't know. I don't even want to. I was gonna like mention blackface and how that might feel. Like it's just like, holy shit! Like the people are doing this. Like, oh my god. I love that they have done this, and you know, they talk about how they are like so concerned with the plight of beastmen, but they don't even understand what beastmen are because they throw Nina in the salt water. They don't know. They think she's an animal. They still have ignorant and really misinformed, dangerous ideas about what she is and what beastmen are, and that leads to like directly to harming Nina, to almost killing her. And Nina, of course, didn't see that because they were so nice to her. But yeah, I loved this scene. I loved it because, man, like this is the sort of thing that I haven't seen in one of these anthropomorphic animal stories, and how they approach racism or oppression or things like that. I feel like this is a kind of a new dimension of that I thought was, I don't know, it was super poignant. Loved it.
Well, I agree with you actually, and I'll add another dimension on that by saying that the thing I'll mention as well is that they say like, you know, oh, look at all the troubles that Nina must have been through and all that. And if I may say, if you substituted Nina with Michiru here, that line would have some truth to it. But that's not the case, because Nina, unbeknownst to them, is the daughter of a dosing crime boss. So wealth and, you know, having food on the table and such, or even, dare I say, running water, if you want to compare to the baseball team that we see in episode 5, is of no concern to her. So that in itself is a fiction. So I've got to be careful talking about this, because like I think even though I've made a point before, like about how I feel this show like really fumbles the ball on trying to be like equitable with like, you know, the good and the bad parts of a society, particularly a society specifically of a disadvantaged group. I think it is still worthwhile pointing out that there are people in that group who will use their position of power to put themselves above us. In fact, there was actually I think it was the Test Kitchen just put out on Twitter today about how a number of people of color left that particular place because they weren't given proper contracts with, you know, like to make them be paid as well as their white counterparts. And hey, fair play.
Yeah.
You get paid the same. Doesn't matter what fucking color you are, as far as I'm concerned. But what one of them noted on the Twitter thread that I saw was that there were people of color, like, you know, who were actually perpetuating the system in that. Now, am I saying that's a, you know, just don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's a universal, I'm just saying that there are some people who actively work against their own interests as far as, like, you know, their ethnicity is concerned. I mean, Candace Owens.
Exactly.
I know who she is.
Exactly.
I know who the fuck she is. There are individuals who will do that.
We're
and
like,
Nina is
incentivized to do that. You're incentivized to do that in the world we live in. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Nina, like, yes. Sorry, go ahead. I cut you off.
No, so like Nina has, like, you know, a position of power and privilege that she's using to like farm the center for herself. And funnily enough, it does come back to bite her in the ass a little bit in the end. But it's true that she hasn't suffered. Like she doesn't know what her fellow Beastmen have been through. And I think that's to the show's credit, at least, that it's going to say that not all their experiences are the same. Some of them would, have it easier than others. Even though, in turn, to fall back to my point where I think this show still fumbles it, hers is built on blood money. And when I say blood money, her father literally murders someone in that episode.
Yes, exactly. Right. Flip, a bad guy,
Yeah.
unequivocally. For sure. And like, I think, man, I think so far the show, at least what the incomplete kind of half of it I've seen, has been pretty smart about like painting problems as systemic rather than these personal problems. I mean, like, for instance, Mishru, when in episode 6, why do I have to commit a crime to pay my phone bill? I mean, I think this is like such a revealing thing about like what is going on with how they've made Anima City. It was just this failed utopic vision. It was someone who thought maybe there are other reasons why the medicine people got in on this project. But I think the mayor, or at least other scientists involved, they're thinking, boy, if we can just create an independent place where beastmen won't have to worry about being beastmen, problems will be solved. But clearly, very much not the case. Very much not the case, because we see a lot of crimes, but we also see a lot of poor people, and those poor people are not like doing bad things. Like the baseball team, the Bears, are not like these awful villains. They rule. They're great. They're fun. They're kind. They're cool dudes and ladies. But they are pretty destitute. But they didn't make themselves that way. That is because of things like having to commit crimes just to afford to access something like the internet. So I loved that in the show as well. That was a cool thing they mentioned. And I mean, oh, I'm sorry. Do you want now to? What is your next point? I was going to just start making my points, but what's your next point?
Well, to be fair, I don't really have much else to add about all of the episodes. I think we've already covered all the topics that I personally wanted to talk about. Like how I wish the show had more of an idea of where it was going. They had more narrative thrust. Like, I don't know what Michu's next. Like, obviously, I know that she's down about Nazir. That's obvious. But what's like her next goal on her journey to going back, becoming human again? She's going to wait for it to happen, which to me doesn't seem all that compelling or interesting. But I've already treaded this water, so I'll not do that again.
This is the part that I think they did actually flesh out a lot, like, because originally she wants to be human again. She's like, this will fix my problems if I can find out how to cure this disease. And as she is moving through the world, here we find out, oh, she's able to become human again. She can poof, and now she can go back home and do the thing she's always wanted to do. But lo and behold, she goes back home, and it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right when she goes back home. And that to me is really, really cool, because again, like it speaks to this thing Yoshinari was talking about of a young woman going out into the world and trying to find her place, and she can't quite find it out there. Maybe if she goes back home, she doesn't quite fit in there. She doesn't feel right about it, and she feels like she hasn't found a place of her own yet. But she's gonna find it in Anima City with certain people, like Shiro, like Jim, like the baseball team, like with all the people that she's kind of met and incorporated into her life, and hopefully with Nazuna, she can like kind of bring that back in to bear. And she's going to, I think, end up viewing her being a beastman, stop viewing it as something she has to cure, but rather a new and exciting kind of part of her identity.
Problem is that while I would agree with that otherwise, the otherness that she's feeling here is something that's been forced upon her against her will. That's the deal breaker for me on this.
Okay.
I mean, to be really fucking blunt here, if you want to like compare this again to disenfranchised minorities, no one like is given like, a wacky DNA injection that turns them gay or makes them black.
Well, that would be bad.
Yeah, that would be bad. And so why is this show analogizing that to them? Why is Mitru
again, I think, well, we talked about this a little bit with Beastars. Maybe it's not good to like really drill in and like be like, this is 100% absolutely an analogy to racism. And simply kind of say, here is this fantasy world, and there's a lot of parallels you can draw. But of course, in any allegory or kind of metaphor, you're going to have imperfections and things that don't match up exactly right because you're comparing these two different things. It's a conceit of a mystery and a fantasy story. I think, that's what I think about it. I don't think there's anything more to it than that, and I think like it's just sort of a catalyst and the mystery. So you have this company playing around with things like this. It doesn't like, I don't know. To me, it doesn't undercut. It doesn't undercut the things that I've talked about that I think are positive in terms of how the parallels you can draw between the beastmen and disenfranchised or oppressed groups. Nor does it like I think undercut Mishru's personal journey, which is I think like the heart of the show and like why I love so much things like the thing with the strawberry cake. I mean, I just think that was like a masterfully executed scene, and it was a necessary scene again to like to underscore and bring home her humanity, her personhood. That despite like having incredible genes, she still has these problems that are much bigger than things that she can solve on a baseball field. Just like Anima City has these structural problems that are much wider and much bigger than something that can be solved by simply giving the beastmen a piece of land.
You could solve this in one simple stroke, because there is something good going on here, which is it ties in with what's happening with Nina in that Mitru, by merit of having these powers, and this is something that Shiro brings up by saying you're not going to show these off in public because it'll cause like riots or whatever, which, yeah, I get that totally. That works for me. But you know what you could have done? You could have had Mitru always being a beastman, except the key difference being it's only after that accident that she got the powers that she has. She can't control them, and that's when she goes to Anima City. Because not all beastmen live in Anima City, as I understand it. So that would still fit.
I guess. I don't know, but then you take away from, I don't know, the interestingness of her personal journey, leaving her home to this like kind of different, interesting place to live and make a life for herself.
She can still go to Anima City on her own. Heck, here's the inciting incident that makes her go. She's considering going, and then her parents find out that she's got these squiggly arms, or oh my god, she's got random cheese legs out of nowhere, and they throw her out. It's the X-Men thing again. There are better ways of doing this.
Oh, I don't like it as much as what's been presented. I think what's been presented is the right way to do it.
I'm just going to say, though, I think forcing this sense of otherness on her, again, that's murky as fuck to me. That does not read right.
She's just discovering who she is, right? I mean, like, just like...
Well, but she wasn't a beastman until this was forced on her, so she wouldn't have undergone this journey if that hadn't happened.
Okay, but people who are, I don't know, let's take, for example, queer people. They discover it at a certain point in their life, whereas previously, if you look back, people have told sort of their coming out stories will say things like, looking back, like I could put the pieces together, and now from where I'm at, I could see like, oh, here's were signs that I was a queer person. But there's always a moment, and there's a before I knew and after I knew. And that's not forced upon them by giving them a drug, but you do have a phase in your life of before you understood that about yourself. And then when you do, you have to, if you want to learn more about who you are and what that's like, there's a journey you go through, right? I mean, you talk to other people that have had your experience, you read about it, you connect, you do like self-reflection, and it's sort of this lifelong thing. And I think similarly in Michiru's life, there is a before and an after where she suddenly has this other identity. I mean, not like, yeah, it's like this new thing for her. And she's got to figure it out. Now, granted, you like, again, not a perfect one-to-one analogy, but I think the parallel works here.
I really can't get over the hump of the fact that it was forced on her. Now, don't misunderstand me, people listening at home. I'm not saying like if you know, that's inherently necessarily a bad thing if she embraces that in the end. Don't get me wrong on that. But I mean, in turn, there's obviously no real life way in which you simply like give someone a drug and they become something that they are not.
Yeah,
originally.
Yeah, no, totally.
That is for me the big stumbling block here, and that's why I think that they're fumbling the ball on this along with everything else. In that, if they wanted it to be about this, like, because the thing is, like, actually no, I'm not going to say any more on this because I'm a cishet dude. I have, questioned my sexuality once or twice, and I've settled on that. But I have not been anything like the experiences of people who are LGBT plus. And I'm going to put a hard line on saying, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, so go and ask someone else about that instead of me. Simple as that.
Yeah.
I'll admit my limitations here. I'm not going to pretend that I can talk about this any further.
Sure. Yeah. I have the same limitations as well. But just from an analytical point of view, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think, again, like, thinking about this maybe like B-Stars might be the most helpful thing is not saying this is an analogy for people of color and everything is meant to be, everything they say about Beastmen, you're meant to apply to people of color in our own time or whatever. Like, I think that you can run into problems with B-Stars or in almost any like anthropomorphic animals sort of story about the oppression of marginalized groups kinds of story, and or you could fall into the other ditch where it's just something that they're doing for aesthetics and it doesn't have really much to say at all about humans. And I don't think this is BNA or B-Stars. I think that it does have things to say, but like I just think like it's more useful to kind of treat it as like a loose set of parallels again, and not like, this is meant to be that, especially because, I mean, I don't know, like fuck authorial intent, but just knowing that like the core idea of the show is meant to be female empowerment and a young woman's personal journey. It has sort of colored my view of the show. I mean, and that's a bias I have for seeing it first and foremost as that kind of thing. And then the other stuff is there, and it is like really cool and interesting and really exciting to think about. But again, I just don't think it is this like isomorphous relationship to any one particular marginalized group. But I think now we've said our pieces and we made our arguments about this particular aspect of the show. So,
well, I'm open to being proven wrong and seeing how things develop. We do still have 6 episodes left, so I'll allow that. In that case, then we'll wrap up. So,
yes,
shall I give my thoughts first? Final thoughts, final rating?
Go for it.
Okay. The thing is, the criticisms I've laid at the feet of this show are really more at the show as a broad thing, and I kind of have to rate these episodes in a vacuum. And I do agree with all of Doc's sentiments about the character beats and such. I think they works. Episode 5 was really, really fun in its own right, just for the animation. I'm ultimately, though, still a bit down on the overall like plot going a bit too glacially for my taste. Like, I wish I had more idea of what the end game was at this point. I'm not saying that it needs to, of course, be fully fleshed out, but I wish that we had progressed more than pharmaceutical guys twirling his mustache. So with that in mind, I'm actually going to give this show these particular 3 episodes, the exact same rating that I gave it last time. Which is to say, I'm going to give it 3.5 Chuck Evil Cheese, baseball players out of 5.
That got rolled.
Like, the episodes in a vacuum are fine. The problems I have with the show are of the show it's overall, and therefore I'll have to reserve final judgment on those for when we finish. But I will reiterate one other thing that I've said before, which is don't fucking come to me as a white dude for opinions for definitive opinions on racial issues and such, or even like LGBT plus issues. So I'm also cis het. That I should stress doesn't mean I shouldn't contribute my 2 cents to this, because obviously it's still an important thing to talk about. But there's a reason it's called 2 cents, because that's the value of it.
Okay, fair enough. I am going to give this set of episodes a higher rating, and I'm really glad.
No surprises.
Yeah, higher, because I think I gave it 3.75 last time, and it's gonna be higher than that because I'm really glad we're watching this in chunks, because I do think like individual episodes I might have scored lower, but I think this sort of as a group, this was a really great watch for me, because like keeping in mind the things we watched before the first 3 episodes, like I got what I really wanted out of the show was like to spend some time with the characters that wasn't all about kind of explaining like core concepts of beastmanness or animicity. They felt like more just like, living in animicity and hanging out with Michiru and friends. Particularly episode 5, I think was just such a fun one of the most fun anime episodes I've seen all year.
Winnie the Pooh, that'll do for me.
So good. And I think the stuff that they brought in episode 6 is so fascinating, and like I'm so excited to see where they go with that. I loved all the character stuff. I don't really need an antagonist right now where I'm at with the show. Like, again, what I wanted right now was time with the characters, and I got a little bit of that. And I got also interesting stories about about sports and fun stuff, but also about religion, about privilege, about discrimination and things that were all kind of throughout. And I thought that they mostly all succeeded. I didn't really get too much time with Shiro, but maybe that either means his time is coming. This is just 3 episodes of the show.
He stops a car with his foot. I think that alone was a great moment.
Sure. No, it was a cool moment, but just sort of knowing who he is and what makes him tick, we didn't really get much more on it. But I think that's to come. I think that he got his initial establishment as Batman and as immortal, that we learn. And now he's kind of made way for the other characters. And I mean, I just really, really enjoy Michiru a lot, way more than I thought I would. And again, I'm super intrigued to see where it goes. I think these episodes are really well animated. I think the music is great. Just the artistic decisions from like some of the backgrounds, which I thought seemed improved this time around, to the shot composition, like I said, the sort of deliberate contrast between the best friends talking on the altar together, very intimate on a bed, to the best friends talking in a park together where the forms are swapped and they're far apart, and it's more of like almost a sanitized atmosphere, a lot of distance between them. Things like that, are just touches that I really liked. And again, I just think episode 4 was pretty remarkable in kind of what it chose to tackle. The material was so good there. So I am going to give this particular set of episodes, I would give it 4.25 if not for just the baseball episode was so good that I have to push it to 4.5 vats of dangerous salt water out of 5.
Play, man, fair play.
And that's going to do it for our 3-hour now officially stream of more than twice as long as the material we're covering. This has been our talk about episodes 4 through 6 of BNA Brand New Animal here on Warui Deshou Stream of Thought. If you would like to contribute and if you would like to support us on Patreon, which you don't have to, just only if you want to, of course. Patreon.com/ Warui Deshou, WARUIDESHOU, to get all sorts of fun rewards, extra content, participation, helping us create content by like voting on what we cover, all sorts of fun stuff. Go there and check it out. Otherwise, if you don't want to support us there, you can, but you do still want to do your part in supporting us, you can always, follow us on Twitter, follow us on Spotify, on YouTube, subscribe, click like, click bell, share our stuff, comment, send us a tweet, send us an email, wateruideshow@gmail.com. And Shadon, if people want to get in touch with you and they're like, Doc is full of shit, I want to talk about how this show is a flawed mess, how do they get in touch with you on Twitter?
Well, they can firstly keep that to themselves, because I'll be just fair and say, like, look, me and Doc, like, we sometimes vehemently disagree on stuff, and it's better that we do than we don't. Like, you don't literally want this podcast to be like me on your left, like, headphone, Doc on the right. You don't want it to be its own form of mono. But I absolutely see where Doc's coming from. And like I say, this is just my perspective. And my perspective, again, is me, like, coming in as a white dude and all this stuff. So take it for what it's worth. Pinch of salt.
Oh,
2 cents.
I'm so glad that you brought all these arguments, because it's stuff that, like, I didn't think of. Like, I thought these are terms on which I thought the show was doing well, but, like, to hear the point of view, it's like, oh, well, it's actually not doing great. In fact, it's implying all sorts of bad shit. I think it's really interesting, and I'm really glad that you brought this. And yeah, we do get sometimes, occasionally we get heated, but this is me responding to arguments. This is just how graduate school was for me. We would all get heated and argue about shit, and then we go out for pizza and beer or whatever.
Damn right. Damn right we do. And in turn, I'm not so big a man as I won't admit that I could be completely talking out my ass of all this. So I'm more than happy to hear your thoughts on it. No, yeah, exactly. I'm more than happy to hear your thoughts on this, as long as they're constructive, and you're more than welcome to send them to me at Shadon1010 on Twitter. Or if you haven't already done so, get yourself on our Patreon for at least $2 and get yourself on the Discord, where we can have a more real-time conversation about it, and you get yourself other cute benefits while you're at it.
A better medium for discussion, the Discord, for sure.
I get to use emojis then. They're like emojis are like spells in a turn-based RPG. I get to use one per turn.
Oh my god! I can't wait to go on eggplant. I can't wait to go on the Discord after this and see I've avoided the BNA channel, but I really want to see what people are thinking. I want to see how Yukinon is down on it. I don't want to see how other people might be iffy or pro or pro it. I finally did it. I finally bumped the pop filter, so I'd avoided it the whole episode. I know. I thought I was going to make it through the whole episode. It's a 3-hour runtime, man.
That'll buy you a Sonic drive-through on the way home when you finish in a bit.
But if you want to hit me up on Twitter, I am at the Subtle Doctor. No spaces, underscores, no caps necessary. And hey, I've really, really enjoyed this discussion. This was fun in a different way, I think, than like the Rakugo or Flag or Decadent streams were fun. They were all really fun, but this was fun in a different way. So thank you, Shadon. This was really cool.
Thank you too, my friend.
And that's going to do it for us now. Thank you all so much for listening. And we will be back next week for the aforementioned Decadence, episodes 4 through 6.
I can't wait.
I haven't seen the next ones yet, so I'm excited to watch them all when episode 6 comes out in a chunk. But let us know how you're liking the new format as well. And next time we'll be getting around to BNA will be, let me pull up the old calendar. It will be the final week of August. I think it'll be like the 27th, 28th. But
my holiday weekend in the UK. I get to get really drunk that weekend.
All right. Thank you too, Jessica. Hope you've all
Thanks,
enjoyed.
Jessica.
We hope you've all enjoyed it. And from Shadon and the Subtle Doctor, this has been Warui Deshou. We're saying, embrace each other, everyone, to the ends of the universe.
Oh, bring back the brothers.
Bring them back.
No.
The brothers.
Fuck you.